The air outside the operating room was chilled, and as the boiling turmoil of her emotions slowly settled, Cora felt as if her blood were turning to ice. Her entire upbringing had drilled one principle into her: in a crisis, stay calm. At 27, she felt she had weathered more than her share for her age. When faced with an emergency, even if she couldn't prepare for every eventuality, she would never lose her composure. This was the first time since her grandfather's death that she had felt such profound panic. The panic had crested when she heard the words, possible amputation, and might not wake up. A frigid wave shot from the soles of her feet to the crown of her head. Cora stood rooted to the spot, frozen, as her pupils contracted, her heart feeling as if something had gnawed a piece out of it. Images of Cole flooded her mind. The first time she saw him, delivering food in the pouring rain. The man who had walked her home. The one who had eaten with her, who handled everything with such quiet competence. All the details she had once overlooked now sharpened into painful clarity. Cora closed her eyes and swayed, bracing herself against the wall, her hand clenching into a tight fist. Ms. Vance, her assistant, seeing her distress, immediately reached out to steady her. Cora looked at her, her eyes chips of ice. Investigate the crash. Find out where Jenna went, who she's with now, and find out if Cole's accident had anything to do with her. And if it did, then she would break Jenna's legs. A leg for a leg. The assistant shivered at the cold fury in Cora's eyes and immediately relayed the orders. Jenna had already left on a flight. As for the driver, Cora had her people tear his home apart. They didn't miss a thing, and it didn't take long to find a motive. The driver had a daughter with kidney failure who had been undergoing treatment for years. A matching kidney had finally become available, but the family didn't have the money. Following that thread, they quickly learned from his niece about a recent transfer of $1 million. Taking money for a job. In the coldest terms, it was attempted murder. With a record of the transfer, tracking the sender was easy. All clues pointed to one person, Dylan. Jenna's first love, the one responsible for breaking her legs all those years ago. And now, somehow, they were tangled up together again. Had Jenna's decision to run from the wedding been a spur-of-the-moment impulse? Or was it premeditated? It didn't matter. Wrong choices have consequences. If Cora couldn't break her legs, she would ruin her hands. Everyone has to pay for what they do. Jenna shivered for no reason, rubbing her arms. Cold. A little. The sky was dark by the time they landed. It was raining in Portland, the temperature a noticeable drop from Denver's. Jenna had left in a hurry, bringing nothing but her essential documents, and was wearing only a thin, long dress. As they stepped off the plane, a fine, slanted rain misted over her, a relentless chill seeping into her bones. Dylan chivalrously took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Here were mine. Jenna pulled the jacket tighter. Thanks. I'm your boyfriend now. You don't have to be so formal with me. Boyfriend? The word made Jenna think, unwillingly, of Cole. Where's my phone? Turn off airplane mode and connect it. See if anyone's called or texted me. Okay. Dylan took out the phone. As soon as it reconnected to the network, the screen lit up with notifications. A lot. Who? Jenna asked. Dylan scanned the screen. Your parents, your sister, a few friends. Jenna listened, but the name she wanted to hear wasn't among them. She paused. What about Cole? Did Cole call or text me? No. Seeing her disbelief, Dylan held the phone out to her. He really didn't call you. Maybe he didn't care that much about the wedding. Or maybe he knew he wasn't good enough for you and didn't dare bother you. Lost in her own thoughts, Jenna didn't notice the biting sarcasm in Dylan's voice. Do you think something happened to him? Probably not. I just had someone block his car for a bit. Jenna knew about Dylan's plan to have the wedding car delayed. She'd even approved it, worried she wouldn't have enough time to get away. She had wanted to create as much of a delay as possible on the way to the venue. Jenna frowned, deep in thought. If nothing happened to Cole, why hadn't he called her? Was it really like Dylan said, that he didn't care about the wedding? Come to think of it, she had been the one to initiate everything with Cole. She confessed her feelings first. She'd been the first to bring up marriage. No matter how you looked at it, she had been the one driving things forward. If Cole really loved her, he should have been unable to let her go. He should have called, pleaded with her to come back, or at least demanded an explanation. The last thing he should be is silent. Hours had passed since she'd left. Not a single call, not one text. A seed of doubt began to sprout. Had Cole ever really loved her at all? Why else would he be so quiet? A wave of irritation washed over her, and she tossed the phone back to Dylan. Dylan put the phone away and walked beside her. Do you want to buy some clothes first? Or should we eat? Let's eat. I'm starving. She'd been up early for the wedding and had no appetite, so she hadn't eaten anything. She'd endured until noon, and on the plane, she'd been too picky to eat the meal provided, settling for a drink. Proposing had been an impulse, and the closer the wedding got, the more she resisted. She'd been agonizing over it, finally making her decision 2 days ago, after meeting with Dylan. But today, when she put on the wedding dress and looked in the mirror, she'd hesitated again. She had thought, if Dylan doesn't show up today, I won't go through with it. She'd been like a marionette, swaying back and forth, completely handing her agency over to someone else. While they waited for their food, Jenna went to the restroom. Dylan took out his phone and searched for news of a car crash on the main route out of Denver. TikTok was flooded with videos. The wedding car Cole had been in was overturned, mangled, and destroyed. Even if the person inside wasn't dead, they had to have a few broken bones. The videos were chaotic with shouting and flashing police lights as officers worked the scene. Dylan's goal had been to cause a fender bender to block Cole's car. But from the looks of it, Cole wasn't the only one hurt. Other vehicles had been damaged. Seeing the scale of the wreckage, a sharp spike of unease shot through him. Jenna's phone suddenly rang. Dylan looked at the screen. The contact name read, Cole's grandmother. He stood up and glanced toward the restroom. Jenna was still inside. He swiped to answer. Hello. An old woman's confused voice came through the phone. Isn't this Jenna's phone? The voice didn't sound like Cole's, which puzzled her. Yes, it is. What do you need her for? I just wanted to ask if their wedding was over. I tried calling Cole, but I couldn't get through. Of course you couldn't, Dylan said. Because he's in the hospital right now. The old woman's breath hitched. Her voice trembled. What did you say? Dylan smirked. Cole was in a car accident on the way to the wedding. It's bad. Life or death. He's probably still in the operating room. If you can get to Denver tonight, you might get to see him one last time. He could hear her gasping for air. Dylan had no intention of letting up. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Dylan, Jenna's first love. Jenna only got with your grandson to make me come back to her. Did you really think for a second your family deserted her? A bunch of dirt-poor nobodies from the sticks. Old woman, have you ever heard the saying, you shouldn't be too greedy? Don't desire what doesn't belong to you. Some blessings are too heavy to carry, and they turn into curses. See, here's a perfect example. Your precious grandson is getting what he deserves. The old woman was frantic. I don't believe you. I want to talk to Jenna. Put her on the phone. You really won't give up until you're staring at the grave, will you? Dylan kept his eyes on the restroom. When he saw Jenna emerge, he lowered the phone into his bag without ending the call. Jenna, I've already ordered. All your favorites. Jenna sat down and took a sip of water. Did I see you on the phone just now? Telemarketer. Dylan ladled half a bowl of soup for her. Jenna, do you regret running away with me? Jenna's hand paused, the spoon hovering near her lips before she set it down. She looked at Dylan. Once I've done something, I don't regret it. Good. I was just worried you'd develop feelings for Cole over time. I was afraid my showing up would get in your way. Jenna's denial was reflexive. How could I ever develop feelings for him? I was just playing with him. There was a petulant edge to her voice. She hadn't forgotten why she got together with Cole in the first place. It was to one-up Cora, to break them apart, to make Cora taste the bitterness of wanting something she couldn't have. True, Cole is just some guy from the country, after all. He was only with you to be a gold digger. He wasn't a gold digger, Jenna corrected him. Whenever they went out, Cole was the one who paid. And from what she knew, his annual salary was in the millions. Her own father often praised Cole in private, saying he was highly capable, a man destined for great things. He was smart, driven, and most importantly, patient. Even if they hadn't gotten married, the Vance Corporation would have invested heavily in his career. Jenna didn't say more, just lowered her head and sipped her soup. Dylan's brow furrowed. His expression remained neutral, but he was seething inside. He glanced at his phone. The call had ended. He assumed the old woman had heard everything she needed to. He quietly deleted the call from the log. If he was going to wreck this, he would wreck it completely. He would leave no chance for Jenna and Cole to ever reconcile. Dylan harbored a deep animosity toward Cole. Though they'd never met, he just couldn't stand the man. In his mind, Jenna was his. Even after they broke up, she was still his woman. He didn't know about other guys, but he was possessive of his exes. For some nobody with nothing to his name to dare steal his woman was, to a narcissist like Dylan, a profound humiliation. And anything that made him feel humiliated had to be destroyed. Cole was finally out of surgery and moved to the intensive care unit. The air was thick with the smell of antiseptic. Cora stared at his face, so pale it was devoid of life. The room was quiet, terrifyingly so. It was the same kind of quiet that had surrounded her grandfather when he passed away. A sourness rose in her nose, so sharp it brought tears to her eyes. Cora clutched her chest, the tears turning cold against her skin in the chilled air. Time ticked by, but Cole showed no signs of waking. The doctors said this was normal. His surgery had been a success. His life was not in danger, and they had saved his leg. When she heard that news, Cora's knees had nearly buckled. Jenna running away, Cole's accident. One blow after another had been too much for Eleanor Vance, who had fainted earlier in the day. Robert Vance was so furious he was shaking, his words stumbling out of his mouth. After dealing with the crash scene, he called Cora. "Cora, how's Cole?" he asked, his voice cautious. In this, Jenna was the guilty party, and Cole was the victim. The Vance family owed Cole, no matter how you looked at it. The accident had happened. All they could do now was try to make amends. They saved his leg. Now we just have to wait for him to wake up. Have you contacted Cole's grandmother? Not yet. She's old. If we just tell her straight, I'm worried the shock will be too much for her. Cora agreed. For now, they had to keep the old woman stable. Let's wait until Cole wakes before we contact her. But before they could, the grandmother's call came, not to them, but to Cole's phone. Cora answered it, saying, "Grandma, is that Cole?" It wasn't the grandmother's voice on the line, but the urgent voice of a man. "Your grandmother's in trouble. She's at the hospital. You need to get back here. Now, if you're late, you won't see her. You have to hurry." Cora stumbled back against the wall, a cold sweat breaking out on her forehead. She thought she must have misheard. The man on the other end, thinking the signal was bad, spoke louder. "Hello, can you hear me? If you can hear me, get in a car and come home now. Fly if you can, it's faster. Just get back here." This time, she heard it clearly. The sharp pain in her clenched fist told her this was no illusion. Cora steadied herself. "I hear you. I'll be there." Cole was still lying unconscious in bed. She couldn't just drag him back to his hometown while he was in critical condition. The moment she hung up, Cora made her decision. She would go to Cole's hometown herself. A text came through with the hospital's address. Cora told her secretary to book a flight. The fastest would get her there in an hour. She gave Cole one last look, took his phone, and headed out, telling her assistant on the way to take good care of him. She got a ticket. With a flight and a taxi from the airport, she should make it before midnight. When Cora arrived at Aspen Creek Regional Hospital, the grandmother was still in the emergency room. A nurse told her that her high blood pressure had caused a cerebral hemorrhage. The grandmother had always suffered from high blood pressure, relying on medication to keep it under control. Her health had been declining with age, and at a recent checkup, her doctor had repeatedly warned her to manage her emotions. For someone with hypertension, extreme emotional swings were the most dangerous trigger. A surge of blood to the brain could rupture a blood vessel, a brain hemorrhage with its high rates of disability and death. The neighbor who looked after the grandmother, a woman named Mrs. Jenkins, had never seen Cora before. "You are. I'm Cole's boss." Mrs. Jenkins stared for a moment. "And Mr. Miller? He didn't come." Cora didn't hide the truth. She told her about Cole's accident. "How could this be?" Mrs. Jenkins whispered in disbelief. Grandson and grandmother, both in crisis on the same day. "How is Mr. Miller now?" she asked urgently. "He's out of surgery," Cora said. "He wasn't awake when I left, but don't worry, his life is not in danger." Mrs. Jenkins wiped her eyes. "As long as he's alive, that's what matters." But the old woman's situation was dire. During surgery, the doctor had issued a critical condition notice, telling them to prepare for the worst. The wait outside the emergency room was agonizing. Cora looked up at the clock on the wall. Time in a hospital always seemed to run a minute slow. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor emerged, wearily pulling off his mask and shaking his head. "The family can go in and see her one last time." A sharp ringing filled Cora's ears. Her breath caught, her throat tight with a lump of cotton. Beside her, Mrs. Jenkins, already pale, turned ashen. She leaned against the wall, tears finally streaming down her face. "Doctor, please try something else. Save her. Her grandson isn't back yet." Behind them, the doctor patiently explained that there was nothing more they could do. For the elderly, illness often strikes without warning, and when it does, it hits like an avalanche. Cora's steps were heavy, her legs feeling as if they were filled with lead as she dragged them into the room. This was the first time she had seen Cole's grandmother. The old woman was even frilier than she had imagined, with a full head of silver hair and wrinkles like a water-soaked newspaper. She was surrounded by machines, an oxygen tube taped below her nose. Cora didn't know what to call her. She walked to the bedside and finally managed, "Grandma." The old woman's eyes were half open, filmed over with a cloudy haze. Her lips parted, her voice weak. "Are you Jenna?" Cora and Jenna were sisters, Their builds and features were similar. Combined with the old woman's failing eyesight, the mistake was understandable. To give her some peace, Cora didn't correct her. Yes, I came to see you. Cole got held up with something. He can't make it just yet. Can you wait for him, please? At the name Cole, the old woman's eyes cleared slightly. Her voice was murky and ancient. Is he okay? He's fine, he's doing great. I'll call him for you. Cora had prepared an AI deepfake video call before she left, just in case. The grandmother moved her fingers slightly. No need. If he saw me like this, he'd just worry. Her voice was a bare whisper. I know my own body. I'm not going to make it. But there are a few things I want to say to Cole. Can you record a video for me? Cora's face was numb, incapable of expression. Her hand trembled as she took out her phone. Okay. She opened the camera and aimed it at the old woman. Grandma, I'm starting. The grandmother's pupils slowly turned, scanning Cora's face before settling on the phone's camera. As if through that small lens, she could see Cole's face. A nostalgic smile touched her lips. Whether it was an illusion or not, Cora thought the old woman's color had improved slightly, her eyes now fully open. But her voice was still faint and broken. It was rare for her to speak so much, her words a stream of memories, every syllable filled with love for Cole. Cole, you were your grandma's pride. You never brought me shame. As she spoke, the light in her eyes grew dimmer. She suddenly looked toward the door. Was she afraid of death? Of course she was. If she could, she'd want to live a few more years. The apples they just picked from the tree hadn't been eaten yet. There were dumplings she'd made in the freezer. Daisy was waiting for her to come home. She wanted to see her grandson one last time. I see someone coming to get me, she murmured to herself, her lips barely moving. In her vision, she saw her own parents, her husband, her daughter who had died so young. So, you really do get to see your loved ones when you die? In that light, maybe death wasn't so terrible. Young lady, can you tell me your name now? I know you're not Jenna. It seemed she couldn't fool the old woman's eyes after all. Cora grasped her hand. Grandma, my name is Cora. Cora. The grandmother repeated the name, as if engraving it in her heart. Cora, with me gone, I'm afraid my grandson will have a hard time. Can I trouble you with one last favor? Cora's fingers trembled, her voice choked with a sob. Please ask. Help me look after him for a little while. Remind him to eat and sleep, not to ruin his health. He's the one I worry about most. But I know he's always been strong. He'll get through this. She raised her hand, grasping at the empty air. Cora quickly caught it in hers. Grandma, I promise you, I'll take care of Cole. I'll be there with him for you. A look of contentment passed over the grandmother's face. She let out a long, shuddering breath. Thank you. She wanted to say more, to settle everything, but her life was slipping away. In their final moments, people call out for those they depend on most. The last word on the grandmother's lips was, Mama. Mama, it hurts so much. The phone fell to the floor. The old woman's hand grew cold and stiff in hers, the pulse in her wrist vanishing like a kite with a snapped string. Without her noticing, the doorway had filled with people. Cora didn't recognize any of them, but she could see they were all grieving. Mrs. Jenkins, especially, was crying so hard her eyes were red and swollen. The town pastor sighed. With Cole not there, they would have to help with the funeral arrangements. Who could have imagined a joyous wedding would turn into a funeral? It was a stark reminder of life's unpredictability. Cole's grandmother died on the 21st of May. The weather was cool. It had rained that morning, as if the heavens themselves were weeping for her passing. And in the very moment she died, miles away in Denver, Cole jolted awake. The injury was to his right leg, but his heart was pounding with a sudden, violent pain. The agony was unbearable, forcing him from the depths of unconsciousness. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused, taking in the world around him. White. A world of white. White walls, white lights, white blankets. A stark, sterile white. He hated the color. He was still dizzy. Seeing him awake, the assistant rushed to call a doctor. As the medical staff checked him over, memories slowly returned, and his body flinched instinctively. Cole remembered. He had been in a car crash on the way to the wedding. His leg was pinned under the car door. He had struggled in desperation, and in a haze of fading consciousness, he had pulled out his phone and called Jenna. The call had connected. Jenna had said one thing. Cole, I don't want to get married anymore. Let's just leave it at that. His leg had gone numb, the bone crushed and twisted, clearly broken just from the look of it. But in that life or death moment, he wasn't thinking about the wedding. He was thinking, if something happens to me, what will Grandma do? She had high blood pressure. She couldn't handle the shock. If he died, how would she bear it? He had wanted to find someone to comfort her, to take care of her for him. He never imagined the call he'd made with his last ounce of strength would end like that. It was dark outside the window. His phone was gone. He had no idea what time it was. His gaze swept across the room, finally landing on his assistant. Mr. Lee, the assistant stepped forward. Mr. Miller, what time is it? 1 in the morning. So late? Cole asked cautiously. What's the date today? May 21, SD. Cole let out a breath of relief. Only a few hours had passed. Nothing terrible could have happened yet. He tried to move his legs. The left one responded, but the right was completely immobile, the wound throbbing with a pain that even the medication couldn't dull. What happened to my leg? A nurse beside him explained. It was broken. A very severe fracture. You'll have to be careful with it from now on. It won't affect my walking, will it? If you recover well, it won't. But if you don't listen to the doctor and do your physical therapy, then yes, it will be a big problem. Cole took it in stride. As long as he didn't lose the leg or end up paralyzed, everything else was manageable. A broken leg just needed time to heal. 100 days, and he'd be back on his feet. Besides his leg, he had numerous other injuries, including a large, painful lump on his forehead. Cole looked at the assistant. My phone? Have you seen my phone? The assistant answered evasively. I think you should be resting right now. Maybe stay off your phone for a bit. I want to see if my grandmother called or texted me. The more the assistant held back, the more Cole suspected something was wrong. They stared at each other, one sitting high, the other lying low. Finally, the assistant relented, handing him the phone. Aren't you concerned about your wedding? Cole's expression froze for a second before he answered nonchalantly. Tell me about it. I'd like to know what happened after I crashed. The assistant glanced at Cole, then delivered the speech he'd been rehearsing all afternoon. Shortly after your accident, Ms. Vance disappeared. Be more specific, Cole pressed. Disappeared or ran away? The assistant looked surprised. You don't seem surprised at all. I called her when I was in a wreck. She told me she didn't want to get married anymore. He wasn't an idiot. Connecting that call with his current situation, it wasn't hard to figure out. He looked calm, almost indifferent, but it was all an act. Staring at the ceiling, the same questions turned over and over in his mind. If you didn't want to marry me, why did you propose? If you didn't like me, why did you get with me in the first place? What is love to you? A passing fancy? A game? Was any of it real, or was it all just an act? For Cole, love and marriage had been a high-stakes gamble. He'd had the courage to go all in, and he had the strength to walk away. But this outcome, it didn't just hurt, it disgusted him. He had given this relationship his all. The one who should have regrets wasn't him. Grief, at its most extreme, is silence. The assistant watched Cole, unable to tell if he was truly devastated or if he just didn't care. Cole's thoughts were entirely on his grandmother. He took the phone and saw several missed calls from her. It was so late, she was probably asleep. Still, he decided to call her back, just to let her know he was okay. The call went unanswered. He tried again. As Cole was dialing, Cora replied to the assistant's text. He had messaged her the moment Cole woke up, asking, if Cole asks about his grandmother, what should I say? Should I hide it or tell him directly? From his perspective, it was better to hide it. Cole had just woken up. His body was at its weakest. He needed to rest and recover, free from any external shocks. Clearly, Cora saw things differently. She replied, if he asks, tell him the truth. If he wants to go home to see his grandmother, arrange for a car to take him there safely. Sending Cole to his grandmother's funeral at a time like this would surely impact his health. As if guessing his concern, Cora sent another message. He already missed saying goodbye to her. If he misses her funeral too, he will hate himself forever. Cole had been raised by his grandmother. She was his only family in the world. Putting himself in Cole's shoes, the assistant knew that if it were him, as long as he wasn't dead, he would crawl back if he had to. The doctor had said that since Cole was awake, he was out of immediate danger. Escorting him home in a private medical transport shouldn't be a problem. Cole was still trying to call his grandmother. It was his fourth attempt. A dreadful premonition began to creep in. His face grew pale, his lips losing their color. Why won't she pick up? The assistant spoke. Cole, there's something I have to tell you. Listen to me, and you have to stay calm. Don't get agitated. He repeated the warning. An unknown terror was closing in. Cole wanted to run, but his body was frozen. He held the phone and looked up at the assistant. The assistant placed a hand on his shoulder. Half an hour ago, your grandmother passed away. There was an accident. She died at the hospital. Ms. Vance went back to see her. A sharp pain shot through his left hand. He looked down. The foreneedle had pulled out of the vein, and a mixture of fluid and blood was dripping down his arm. In moments of extreme terror, the body shuts down, a defense mechanism. Right now, Cole was like a broken machine. His movements were slow, his reactions delayed. The parts of him were coming loose, falling away, shattering on the floor, impossible to piece back together. "I have to go back," he said. "I have to go home." To the assistant, Cole seemed calm, but inside, he had already collapsed into ruin. "Okay, don't panic. I've already arranged for a car. We'll get you there before dawn." The assistant hadn't just arranged for a car. He'd arranged for a doctor to accompany them. The vehicle was equipped with medication and emergency tools. From the inside, it was a large ambulance. Cole was quiet the entire journey. After 5 hours of silence, the vehicle drove into the small town and came to a slow stop. The rain from the night before had finally ceased at dawn. In the early morning light, the sky was a pale canvas dotted with wisps of gray cloud. Puddles remained on the concrete road, and the tires made a splashing sound as they rolled over them. Inside the van, Cole was half reclined, clutching his phone, his gaze vacant as he stared out the window. Only when the scenery became familiar did he push himself up slightly. As the grandmother's only living relative, Cole was needed to lead the mourning. News of her death had spread, and the house was full of people. That was how it was in a small town like Havenwood. When one family had trouble, everyone pitched in. "Today, I help you. Tomorrow, you help me." The red lanterns on the walls had been taken down, replaced with black mourning ribbons that were starkly visible from a distance. The old woman was already in her casket. The family dog, Daisy, lay motionless beside it, refusing to be shooed away. She was the first to notice Cole's arrival. She shot up and bolted out of the house, barking as she ran, as if scolding him for taking so long to come home. Cole's gaze shifted from Daisy to the yard. The house was filled with people, all familiar faces. Cora was there, too. He followed Daisy, supported by 2 men, and walked through the door. The casket in the main room, the black and white portrait on the wall. People knelt, weeping. Others offered comfort. His left ear was silent, his right filled with noise. "Mrs. Jenkins came forward, holding a black armband. Seeing Cole's injuries, her voice trembled. "You're home." Cole was in a wheelchair, his injured right leg exposed. The state of his injuries made the severity of the crash horrifyingly clear. Mrs. Jenkins fitted the armband on him. "Your grandmother left a message for you. She said to take care of yourself, to eat and sleep well. Don't be too sad. My condolences." She offered many words of comfort, but Cole only heard half of them, his mind adrift. The town pastor had been contacted. Funereal music played from a speaker, the somber notes carrying across the countryside. Cora remembered the grandmother's words and stayed quietly by Cole's side, handing him water, bringing him food at mealtimes, and reminding him to rest. Cole was compliant, doing whatever he was told, but he was unervingly quiet, not responding to anyone who spoke to him. Everyone understood. He had lost his grandmother and his wedding on the same day. The wake lasted 5 days. On the final day, for the burial, Cole held an urn filled with the ashes from burned offerings. As the procession began, he would smash it. It was time for his grandmother to be laid to rest. Cole took one last look at her. She lay in the casket, her eyes closed tightly, as if she were sleeping. The lid was slowly lowered. In front of everyone, Cole pushed himself out of the wheelchair, standing on one leg. He lifted the urn high above his head and then slammed it to the ground. The urn shattered, symbolizing peace and the hope that the deceased would find tranquility in the next world, breaking the cycle of misfortune. On the day of the burial, tradition held that relatives shouldn't touch the casket or cry, as it would hinder the soul's passage. Cole wanted to cry, but couldn't. From the moment he learned of her death until today, he hadn't shed a single tear. The path to the cemetery was muddy from the rain, slippery even for those on 2 good feet, let alone for Cole with his injured leg. Mrs. Jenkins and the pastor urged him to stay behind, to wait at home. His grandmother would understand. Cole gripped the handles of his wheelchair. "I'm going. I'll crawl if I have to." Cora spoke up. "You all go ahead. We'll follow slowly behind. I had someone work on the path. It shouldn't be too difficult." With Cole's insistence and Cora's assurance, they said no more. The casket was carried up the hill. The headstone bore a picture of his grandmother from her 75th birthday. She had been so happy that day, eating cake, drinking chicken soup, and eating fish. She'd said she never thought she'd live to be 75. It was a lucky age for her because that was the year Cole was getting married. She said she would hold on for 5 more years, until she was 80. Then she'd throw a big party and invite the whole town. By then, she'd probably have a great-grandchild. Reality had a way of shattering beautiful dreams in an instant. The firecrackers were lit, the crowd dispersed. An ember from an incense stick fell onto the back of his hand. It burned, it hurt, but it was nothing compared to the pain in his heart. Cole stood there, supported by others, as the wound on his right leg split open, blood seeping through the gauze, a winding red line down his leg. The house had been cleaned inside and out. Mrs. Jenkins let the chickens and ducks out of their coop. With the grandmother gone, even the poultry seemed to have lost weight. In his memory, everything his grandmother raised thrived. Her fruits and vegetables were fresh and vibrant. Her chickens and ducks were lively. Daisy's coat was glossy, and even the swallows under the eaves seemed plumper than most. He, too, had been raised by her. The smell of burnt incense still lingered in the house, sharp and unpleasant. Cole wheeled himself through every room. The snake plant in the living room, which she'd had for years, had bloomed. The bamboo rocking chair where she used to watch TV. He used to complain that its creaking was too loud. Now it was silent. So silent it was terrifying. The alarm clock on the cabinet had been there for over a decade and still worked. In the cabinet below were stacks of red envelopes. For the wedding, she had prepared them for the children in the town, with small bills inside. She had filled every one herself, using the money she'd made from selling a pig. She never spent the money he gave her, saving every penny in her bank account. She would buy him clothes worth thousands, but wouldn't spend a few hundred on a winter coat for herself. Cole remembered his grandmother's words, "Eat well." When the time came, he ate. There was still plenty of food left over from the funeral, but after 5 days, even the best food becomes tasteless. He opened the refrigerator. The freezer was filled with wontons and dumplings his grandmother had made. The crisper held apples. He had almost forgotten. It was apple season. The apple tree in the yard had been planted by his grandmother when she was young. Now it was taller than the house. The apples were ripe. She was too old to climb the tree, so she used a long bamboo pole to knock them down. Once they were perfectly ripe, they spoiled quickly, even in the fridge. Most of the apples were already bad. She had been saving them for the wedding feast. If there were leftovers, she was going to make apple butter. There was no feast, no apple butter. The beautiful apples had just been left to rot. Mrs. Jenkins saw them and slapped her forehead. "We've been so busy these past few days, I completely forgot about the apples in the fridge." She took them out and started sorting through them. "They've all gone bad. There are hardly any good ones left." "Mrs. Jenkins, you go on. I just want to rest here for a bit." She had been about to pick out the edible ones, but hearing Cole say he needed to rest, she put them down. As soon as she left, Cole pulled the bag of apples onto his lap. He took one out, peeled the skin, and shoved it into his mouth. The flesh was still sweet. He ate it ravenously, piece after piece, his movements getting faster, juice dripping from his mouth. The sweet fruit turned sour, then bitter. Cole stared at the juice on his hands. He had been deliberately ignoring the reality of his grandmother's absence, but now it crashed over him like a tidal wave. It hurt. It really, really hurt. The tears he had held back for 5 days finally came. Cole broke down, sobbing, clutching the apples to his chest like a homeless child, his whole body shaking. He had never broken down like this in his life. People always praised him for his good nature, saying he was too cheerful for a boy with no parents. That was because his grandmother's love had been so abundant it had overflowed, filling the empty spaces where self-pity might have grown. But now, the vessel that held all that love had shattered, and the love turned to pain, drowning him. "Grandma, the apples aren't good this year. They're too sour. So sour my teeth ache, my throat hurts." She was gone, but he could hear her anxious voice in his ears. "Then don't eat them. Leave them be. I'll cook them down with sugar and make apple butter for you to take back to Denver." She had told him to eat on time, to sleep well. He couldn't. He could force himself to eat, but sleep never came. He would lie awake until dawn. He hadn't cried when he learned she had died. He hadn't cried looking at her casket. He hadn't cried during the funeral or when her casket was lowered into the ground. He thought the tears would never come. Who would have thought a few sour apples would unleash them? He felt like he wasn't eating apples, but bitter medicinal herbs, the dregs stuck in his throat, a taste he couldn't spit out or swallow. His leg was the thing that was broken, but it was his heart that was in agony, twisted into a knot. The pain was so intense he wanted to rip open his own chest, break his ribs, and tear his heart out. In their darkest moments, people instinctively reach for the person they rely on most, a parent, a sibling, a lover. For Cole, there was only his grandmother. He only had his grandmother, and now she was gone. He was truly alone in the world. If he hadn't agreed to this wedding, would his grandmother still be alive? The apples were pulled from his hands. Someone wrapped their arms around him, holding him tightly, like comforting a child in the throes of a nightmare. A hand cupped his face, wiping away his tears. He opened his eyes and saw that it was Cora. Why was she still here? Cora knew that before a person breaks, they often fall into a deep quiet. It's the body's self-defense mechanism. When the reality of the loss finally hits, the pain comes back, magnified. Cole needed someone with him. Besides, she had promised his grandmother she would take care of him, that she would help him get through this. Cole, your grandmother left a message for you. I recorded it. Do you want to see it? As she spoke, Cora took out her phone. Cole didn't speak, but as she held out the phone, a desperate urgency flickered in his eyes. Cora played the video and handed it to him. The grandmother didn't say much. The whole video was only 8 minutes long. In it, she lay weakly in the hospital bed, telling the camera how much she would miss him. As if she had foreseen that Cole would blame himself for her death, she said to him, "Cole, you are your grandma's pride. Because of you, my life had meaning. Because of you, I was so happy. Don't blame yourself. This isn't your fault. It's theirs. You need to rest, get better, and make them pay." At a time like this, empty comforts were meaningless. To help Cole find his strength, Cora chose to make him confront his hatred. Hatred is a powerful force. It can make a person strong, help them grow, and become a relentless source of motivation. Who should I make pay? Cora pulled up the information she had gathered. Before she had the accident, your grandmother called Jenna's phone. In her car crash. It's connected to Dylan. Dylan is Jenna's ex-boyfriend. They broke up after her legs were injured. So, she had married him to force Dylan to come back and crash the wedding. Cole finally understood why Jenna had run away, why she said she didn't want to get married. But what did any of that have to do with his grandmother? Why did they have to pay the price for her fickle heart? Why did they have to become casualties in her love life, tools for her amusement? Why? Had he ever done anything to wrong her? At Cora's words, Cole's expression hardened completely. His eyes looked as if they had been stained with blood, turning a furious red. He clenched his fists uncontrollably, his jaw tightening. The next moment, he leaned over the armrest of his wheelchair and dry heaved, feeling a physical revulsion for someone for the first time in his life. Jenna didn't find out about the crash until the day after the wedding. At first, she didn't connect it to Cole. Not until Dylan got a call from his father. "You little bastard. Where the hell are you? Get your ass back here now." It wasn't the first time Dylan's father had yelled at him. His expression was unfazed. "I'm not having fun. What's wrong? You have the nerve to be having fun? Were you behind that car crash on the main road?" Dylan froze. He had been so careful. He hadn't told anyone. How did his father know? "What crash? I don't know anything about it." The driver already confessed. "How long are you going to lie? You just got back in the country, and you're already causing this much trouble." Dylan, oh, Dylan, you've really outdone yourself. Don Sullivan was seething. He was on the verge of a promotion, and Dylan pulls a stunt like this. He wanted to kill him. The color drained from Dylan's face, his good mood instantly evaporating. "You bring Jenna Vance back here now. Her parents have been calling me, looking for her. If you don't bring her back, I'll break your legs." Even through the phone, Don Sullivan's rage was palpable. Dylan didn't dare mess around anymore. He hung up and turned to Jenna, who was sipping an iced drink, basking in the sun. They were at a beach resort, planning to stay for half a month. Now it seemed they had to go back after less than 3 days. "Jenna, my dad called. He wants me to bring you back. I don't want to go back right now." Jenna had a habit of running from her problems. "I've only been gone a few days. My dad's probably still furious." Going back now is like walking right into the line of fire. At home, she was most afraid of her father. "Let's wait until he's cooled down." Dylan asked, "How long do you want to wait?" "A month." Jenna glanced at Dylan's face. "Or maybe 2 weeks." Seeing him remain silent, she frowned. "You're the one who brought me here. You have to be responsible for me. My dad called. I have to go back. What happens if you don't? He said he'll break my legs. He's just trying to scare you. What father would actually do that to his own son?" Jenna turned her back to him, clearly sulking. This trip hadn't been as fun as she'd imagined. Dylan was holding on her phone. She could only use it to check the time. A lot of people had called and texted her, but not Cole. It left her with a nagging sense of unease, a feeling that something important had slipped from her grasp. Men have their pride. For the bride to run out on the wedding, leaving him to face the embarrassment alone. It was only natural for him to be angry with her. Cole had always been good-natured. In all the time she'd known him, she'd never seen him truly lose his temper. Even when he was upset, a little coaxing was all it took to cheer him up. Jenna didn't want to marry him, but she still wanted to be friends. Cole was sincere and patient with her. When he cared about someone, he gave them his all. She couldn't bear the thought of cutting him out of her life completely. "I'll just buy him a gift when I get back," Jenna thought. Apologize, be sweet to him. She was confident Cole wouldn't make things difficult for her. After all, from a networking perspective, she was his most valuable connection. No matter what she did, Cole would never leave her. With that thought, the unease began to fade. Not long after Don hung up, when he also called Dylan. "Your father said that if you don't come back right now, he's going to freeze all of your bank accounts. It seemed they really had to go back. Robert and Eleanor Vance were far more ruthless. They had frozen all of Jenna's cards the day she ran away. For the past few days, Dylan had been paying for everything. If his accounts were frozen too, they wouldn't even have money for plane tickets. After mulling it over, Jenna decided to go back with him. But she didn't want to go home yet. She wanted to stay with Dylan. She never expected to be ambushed the moment they landed. Jenna was forcibly taken home and locked away. She was indignant, crying and screaming in the basement. All I did was run away from a wedding. It's not like I committed some heinous crime. Seeing her complete lack of remorse, Robert Vance was so enraged he slapped her across the face. He pointed a trembling finger at her. You were the one who liked Cole first. You were the one who wanted to be with him, to marry him. We bought the house, planned the wedding, took the photos. All those people were there, and you just decided to run? Jenna never imagined her father would strike her. She covered her cheek in shock, stunned for 3 seconds before the reality sank in. Humiliation turned to fury. So what if I just suddenly stopped liking him? Before we were together, I thought he was great. But after, I realized he's just an ordinary guy. He doesn't have my money. His family background is nothing. I was always embarrassed to bring him to parties, afraid he'd shame me. Do you have any idea how many people were laughing at me for marrying him? Was his family background a sudden development? You knew who he was from the very beginning. If you didn't want to marry him, if you wanted to break up, you could have just told him beforehand. Do you have any idea what happened after you left? What could have happened? It's not like someone died. Cole was in a car accident. Right after you ran away, there was a crash on the main road. He was rushed to the emergency room. He almost lost a leg. Robert's anger boiled over, and he slapped her again, putting his full force into both blows. This time, Jenna stumbled and fell to the floor. Her ears were ringing, her mind filled with her father's words. Cole was in a car accident. Why would he be in an accident? Dylan said he was fine. No wonder Cole hadn't called or texted her once in all these days. Where is he now? What do you want to do? I want to see him. A panic she didn't recognize herself crept into Jenna's voice. He went back to his hometown. His hometown. Jenna suddenly laughed. Dad, you're lying to me. It's not as serious as you're making it out to be. She had been to Cole's hometown. It was a remote place without any decent hospitals. If Cole were really that badly injured, he wouldn't have gone back there at a time like this. She'd broken a leg before. She knew that for the first few weeks, you had to rest and stay off it. It was hundreds of miles from Denver to his hometown. He couldn't fly, so how could his body possibly endure a car ride for several hours? His grandmother died. He went back for her funeral. Robert's eyes were cold, filled with a merciless finality. In that instant, it felt as if a giant hand had seized Jenna's throat. She shook her head in panic. Impossible. You're lying. I have to find Cole. She had to see for herself to know if it was true. You caused his grandmother's death. Well, why do you have to see him? You're going to stay right here and think about what you've done. You're not going anywhere. When your sister and Cole get back, then we'll deal with you. With that, Robert ordered the door to be shut. As the door was about to be locked, Jenna threw herself against it, pounding with her fists. Dad, let me out. Please. I have to find Cole. I don't believe his grandmother is dead. I didn't know Cole would get into an accident. Let me explain to him. At least let me call him. The footsteps outside grew more distant until they disappeared. Jenna was trapped in the pitch-black basement. She screamed until her throat was raw, but no one came. Fear threatened to drown her. Jenna slumped to the floor, her back against the door, curling into a ball. Unconsciously, tears streamed down her face. Cole's grandmother was 75 this year. Just last week, when she'd visited, the old woman had been fine. How could she have died so suddenly? Her father said she had caused Cole's accident, that she had been the one to kill his grandmother. But she truly didn't know anything. She had just run away from a wedding on a whim. She had no idea all of this would happen. Jenna buried her head in her hands, her nails digging into her scalp as the scene of Cole's accident played out in her mind. She remembered he had called her then. Thinking back, he might have been calling for help. And what had she done? She had hung up without a second thought, extinguishing his last flicker of hope. If she hadn't hung up that call, would his grandmother still be alive? Her eyes burned, her face cold with tears. Jenna couldn't bear to imagine how Cole had managed to get home. While Jenna was locked away, Dylan was taken into custody by the police shortly after arriving home. The driver, John D., faced with the evidence, chose to confess, detailing everything that had happened. With the information Cora provided and the driver's confession, the police officially opened a case. Dylan had initially thought it was a minor issue, something he could solve with money. He never imagined it would involve a person's death. The police station was as bright as day. the overhead fluorescent lights illuminating every expression. Dylan's pale, panicked face was magnified, his pupils trembling with anxiety as he sat at the interrogation table. "You hired the driver to intentionally injure Cole Miller?" the officer questioned. "No." He looked up, but his eyes remained downcast. "I only told him to block Cole's car. I never wanted him to hurt him." "Why did you want to block his car?" "Because my girlfriend, Jenna Vance, didn't want to marry him. She wanted to run away and asked me to take her. I came up with that plan so we could get away smoothly. I know I broke the law, but I honestly never thought it would cause such a major accident. I think the driver is the one most responsible, not me." He acted on his own. Seeing him still trying to shift the blame, the officer slammed his hand on the table. "Still trying to argue? We've seen the text messages. Furthermore, that night, Cole Miller's grandmother called Jenna Vance's phone. Jenna said you had her phone the whole time. What did you say to the old woman on that call?" Dylan fell silent. His mind was in chaos. He had made plenty of mistakes in his life, but this was the first time he'd ended up in jail. The situation was not in his favor. The more he said, the more trouble he'd be in. "I want to speak to my lawyer." With overwhelming evidence against him, the best strategy was to admit fault, show remorse, and promise it would never happen again, hoping for a private settlement and negotiating a payout. This whole mess was tied to Jenna. She would have to bear half the responsibility and half the cost. Cole flipped through the file Cora had compiled. When he reached the end, he crushed the papers in his hands, turning them into a wad of trash. "Jenna and Dylan are back. One's in custody, the other's locked up. Do you want to go back?" Cole looked up at Cora, his gaze searching. "Jenna is your sister. Aren't you afraid of what I might do to her? I stand with what's right, not with family. She made a mistake, and she has to face the consequences." Cora bent down to pick up the crumpled papers. "Cole, you can use me to get your revenge. You can use my connections and resources to get ahead." Cole couldn't figure out Cora's motives. She was being good to him, abnormally so, far beyond mere guilt. She didn't just watch over him. She changed his bandages, massaged his leg, pushed his wheelchair outside for fresh air, and sat with him under the stars at night. When he was depressed and volatile, she calmed him. When he tried to hurt himself, she held him tight. When his head ached and he couldn't sleep, she spent hours talking to him until he finally closed his eyes, only then leaving quietly. Cora had completely integrated herself into his life here. She could not only take care of him, but also the chickens and ducks, feed the pigs with Mrs. Jenkins, pick vegetables and pull weeds in the garden, and even cook. She had memorized the doctor's instructions to the letter, changing his dressings on schedule every day. He had to admit, it was because of Cora that he hadn't completely given up. "I want to know," he said, his voice low. "That phone call my grandmother made. What exactly did they say to her?" There were security cameras in the yard, but unfortunately, the audio was poor. Cole had watched the footage countless times, but every time he did, his eyes turned red. He saw clearly how his grandmother had collapsed, the phone slipping from her grasp. He saw her clutch her chest, gasping for air, looking toward the camera as if pleading for help. There was no one with her. Only Daisy the dog was by her side. In the end, it was Daisy's barking that alerted the neighbors and got her to an ambulance. Cole hated Dylan and Jenna. He hated them for so easily taking his grandmother's life without his knowledge. He hated them for treating life as a game, for treating people as disposable. It was the first time he had ever tried to love someone, and he never imagined it would end like this. An intense hatred filled his chest, nearly crushing his sanity. He dreamt of killing them with his bare hands. "Then let's go back. Can you handle a car ride?" Cora looked at his leg. "I can handle it." Cole decided to wait until after the 7th day, the traditional day for the spirit's return, before heading back to Denver. It was said that on the 7th day after death, the soul would return to visit the places it once knew. Would his grandmother come back? As a child, she had told him many of the local ghost stories about how on the day his spirit returned, there would be footprints on the floor, on the walls, under the eaves, and marks in the dust from dragging chains. The stories used to terrify him, which was why he always hated going to funerals. But now, he wasn't afraid at all. Not because he was braver, but because the one who had died was his grandmother. He hoped the stories were true. He hoped his grandmother would come home, just so he could see her one more time, in any way possible. The ghost that others feared was the person he longed to see more than anything. In the end, his hopes were dashed. On the 7th day, his grandmother did not return. He wondered, did she know he was afraid of ghosts, and that's why she stayed away? Cole was a gentle person with many friends. When they heard what had happened, colleagues and friends all sent messages and called to comfort him. Among them, one text from an unknown number was particularly jarring. "This is Don Sullivan, Dylan's father. When you have time, let's meet and talk." The single sentence reeked of arrogance and condescension. Perfect. He wanted to meet them, too. Cole replied with a simple okay, but stated that he would choose the time and place. He could guess why Don Sullivan wanted to meet. It was, without a doubt, to get him to sign a settlement agreement and drop the charges. Cora knew he was going to meet Don and was worried. Let me go with you, and we should bring a couple more people. Cora had thoroughly investigated the Sullivan family. Don Sullivan was a senior policy advisor on an upward trajectory, with a good chance of being promoted to a director-level position, until this happened. For the sake of his career, Don wanted a private, peaceful resolution more than anyone. Cole didn't refuse her offer. It was always good to have a backup plan. You can wait for me outside. Cole and Don agreed to meet at a coffee shop near the police station. Before he went, Cora gave him all the information she could find on the Sullivan family, including Don's wife, Wendy. Dylan came from a very happy family. His father was a government official, and his mother and uncle ran a successful company together. Cole scrolled through Dylan's social media. It was a highlight reel of parties, expensive watches, designer sneakers, yachts, luxury cars, rock climbing, golf, horseback riding. A life of blissful privilege. Every video screamed wealth. In terms of background, he and Jenna really were a perfect match. On the road back to Denver, Cole was half reclined while Cora sat beside him. At first, she spoke to him, but her voice gradually trailed off until her head tilted to the side and she fell asleep against the seat. Cole had been so consumed by hatred these past few days that he hadn't really looked at Cora. Now he noticed the unhealthy pallor of her skin, the dark circles under her eyes. Her fingernails were worn, and a bandage was wrapped around one of her fingers. Cora had been incredibly busy, so busy she hadn't had a proper rest. She was not only looking after him, but also dealing with work and the fallout from the wedding. Anyone else would have buckled under the pressure long ago. The air conditioning blew softly. Cora was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, and the cool air washed over her exposed arms, sending a chill through her. She frowned in her sleep, unconsciously wrapping her arms around herself. Cole took a blanket and gently draped it over her. The moment he touched her, Cora's eyes fluttered open. She blinked, and he could see the fine red lines of exhaustion in her eyes. The sleepiness hadn't faded. Cora was a light sleeper to begin with and had trouble in unfamiliar beds. These last few days in the country, she had worked from morning till night. Her body was exhausted, but when she lay down, her mind raced, tossing and turning, filled with thoughts of him. She thought about how to be around him, how to get closer. She thought about how to treat his leg, how to help him out of his grief. She had hoped he would use her, or at least rely on her a little, just to prove she still had some value to him. But when she made the offer the other day, Cole hadn't responded. "Aren't you going to use it?" Cora asked, lightly clutching the blanket. "I'm not cold. You sleep. Don't catch a cold." Cole's default setting had always been tolerance and kindness. He knew the world's harshness, but refused to become jaded. He understood reality, but wasn't cynical. He met darkness, but held onto the light. He wouldn't blame her for the mistakes Jenna made. He knew the difference between right and wrong. There was a small first aid kit in the car. Cole opened it, took out a new bandage, and handed it to Cora. "The one on your hand is wet. You should change it." The cut was on her right ring finger, from when she had been pulling weeds in the garden. Cora took the bandage and looked at it for a moment, then suddenly turned to Cole. "My left hand is a bit clumsy. Can you help me put it on?" It was a small ploy, and so he wouldn't see through it. She quickly added, "Mrs. Jenkins was the one who put it on for me before." Cole didn't think anything of it. He tore open the new bandage and carefully wrapped it around her wound. The motion was gentle and precise. The bandage circled her ring finger, looking almost like a ring. The sight made Cora hold her breath, her heart thumping erratically like a fish flopping on the shore, flailing, struggling, but also, perhaps, thrilled. "There!" Cole looked up and met her gaze. The way she was looking at him was strange. As if jolted by an electric shock, Cora quickly looked away. She glanced down at her ring finger, wiggled it, and said, "Thanks. Don't mention it. It was just a bandage." A small thing compared to what she had been doing for him, diligently cleaning his wounds and changing the dressings every single day. He figured she was probably doing it out of guilt, trying to compensate him. Cora leaned against the window and soon fell asleep again. This time her brow was smooth. They left in the morning and arrived in Denver in the afternoon. Cole didn't even stop to rest before going to meet Don Sullivan. Don had arrived first. A man cautious from his line of work, the first thing he did was demand that Cole place his phone on the table to prevent any recording. They sized each other up. In person, Don looked older than in his photos. The picture showed a man with black hair and glasses. The man before him had hair that was half gray, and he lacked the confident air from the photos. The stress of dealing with Dylan's mess had clearly taken its toll. Cole glanced at him once and then looked away. Don, however, continued to study him with a strange, meaningful intensity, as if he were looking at someone from his past. This guy is sick, Cole thought, his face impassive as he waited for Don to speak first. On behalf of Dylan, I want to apologize to you, Don began. Since it's already happened, let's talk compensation. Name your price. You want to buy your son's freedom with money? Yes. I hope you'll sign a settlement agreement so we can resolve this privately. Don stared at him. I've looked into your background. It hasn't been easy for you to get where you are. As long as you sign, I'll give you $5 million. You know, most people can't save that much in a lifetime. With $5 million, you could make some investments. Of course, I could also pull some strings, get you a respectable job. He had looked into Cole's background, but he hadn't bothered to learn about Cole the person. Don probably still thought he was some ordinary office worker making a modest salary, another workhorse on the 9-to-5 grind. But Cole had worked relentlessly for years. At the Vance Corporation alone, his salary and commissions were in the millions. He didn't need anyone to give him $5 million. He already had it. Don Sullivan was likely so used to being on top that he radiated an unshakable, misplaced confidence. Cole shook his head. Don had anticipated this. His voice hardened slightly. Then how do you want to resolve this? The law has laws. But if you want to set the law aside, then I want your son dead. After he's dead, I want his body ground to dust. Bang! Don slammed his hand on the table. Cole, don't push it. I came here today in good faith. If $5 million isn't enough, name another number. You can't afford my number. Don's eyes narrowed, his tone turning threatening. So, you're not going to let Dylan go. When bribery failed, he turned to threats, trying to intimidate Cole into submission. Cole was completely unfazed. That's right. Don scoffed. If you didn't want to negotiate, why did you even come? I wanted to see what kind of parents could raise an animal like your son. And now that I've seen you, I have to say, it's truly remarkable. You're like a rattlesnake in a nursery. Cole leaned forward, his voice dropping, poisonous and completely out of place. He picked up his phone, preparing to leave. Wait. Don, who had been furious just a moment ago, suddenly composed himself, a change as quick as an actor swapping masks. Cole, look at this. He pulled a photograph from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Cole recognized it immediately. It was a photo of his mother. How do you have a picture of my mom? Even he had never seen this photo. Because I'm your father. Don's gaze shifted from Cole's face to the photograph. You look a lot like your mother. All these years. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you both. Cole had known his whole life that he didn't have a father. Now, with Don Sullivan suddenly claiming the title, Cole stared for 2 seconds and then let out a sharp, derisive laugh. You're my father? I thought my father fell into a septic tank and drowned in shit. Heard his bones were pickled right through. Don's face tightened. I'm not dead. I know this is a lot to take in all at once. The hospital is nearby. We can go get a paternity test. Cole, you are my son. That makes Dylan your brother. We're family. And helping him is helping yourself. Once this is over, you can transfer your records to my name, change your last name, and you can inherit the family assets. Worried Cole didn't understand the Sullivan family standing. Don gave him a brief overview of their income. It wasn't on the level of the Vances, but the numbers were still substantial. Faced with this bombshell, Cole's expression remained utterly blank. Don continued to play the emotional card. You're all grown up now. Don't worry, from now on, I'll be a good father to you. I'll treat you right. Whatever Dylan gets, you'll get too. Cole smiled. Threats and bribes. You're quite skilled at this, Mr. Sullivan. I imagine you use these tactics a lot in your work. You wait until now to tell me this? You think I don't know what you're trying to do? You're an old man playing childish games. Do you take me for a 3-year-old? Don almost lost his composure. His voice grew heavy. Cole, I understand you're angry, but we can't change the past. A man should only look at the present and the future. Yes, Dylan had someone hit your car, but look, your leg is fine, isn't it? It'll heal, and you'll walk normally. Forgive and forget. Think about it. Which is better, being a nobody or acknowledging me as your father and becoming a young master of the Sullivan family? One was nothing. The other had wealth and power. Leaping across social classes is nearly impossible. Without him, Cole would never climb that high. If Cole were smart, he'd know what to choose. I'd rather be your father. Cole shot back. Anyone who can say something like that must have forgotten to wipe their mouth after talking out of their ass. Do you think being related to you is some great honor? You're a pile of shit pretending to be gold. My life could have been clean, but you had to show up and contaminate it. That thing on your shoulders isn't a head, it's a tumor. And you want me to forgive and forget? What is that exactly? I should make myself miserable just to make you happy. If you think a broken leg is fine, then how about this? I'll break your legs. He had every right to be angry. So why should he back down? Cole was a kind person, but his kindness wasn't an invitation to be bullied. Some people just love to prey on the weak. If you don't fight back, they only get worse. So when someone wronged him, he would always retaliate. A punch thrown now saves you from 100 later. Cole's words were venomous. For every one of Don's, he returned 10. Don grew more and more incensed, his breathing shallow. He felt his hair turning whiter by the second. He shot to his feet, slamming his hands on the table, and glared down at Cole. How do you want to resolve this? Simple. Cole rested his hands on the arms of his wheelchair and looked up, meeting his eyes. Apologize to my grandmother. Your grandmother is dead. Cole's smile was cold. Then you can go down there and apologize to her in person. Don trembled uncontrollably, pointing a finger at him. Cole, I'm warning you. You'd better watch your tone. My tone, Cole said with contempt, is determined by your actions. What did I do? Huh? You tell me. Don's voice cracked. You abandoned your wife and child. You cheated with your mistress. You raised a son who's an animal. If Dylan is an animal, then you're something less than human. For a man your age, you seem to have avoided doing a single decent thing. Cole's mind was racing. From a moment Don claimed to be his father, he had been piecing it all together. He knew an old snake like this wouldn't lie about something so easily verified. He was just using it as leverage. Dylan is 3 years younger than me. Isn't he the product of your affair? To ensure he had a happy childhood, his grandmother had never spoken of these painful things. She had only ever said his mother died of an illness. Cole's mother died when he was 3. The same year, Dylan was born. It was tragic, it was laughable, and Cole couldn't fathom how Don had the gall to admit he was his father. The man was truly shameless. Don Sullivan, you were responsible for my mother's death, and you indirectly caused my grandmother's. You've done so many despicable things. Don't you think you owe an apology? Do you know what a real apology is? Cole's smile was sharp as a razor. It's admitting your mistake and accepting the other person's backlash. It's not just saying forgive and forget. If things could be solved that way, what would be the point of laws and police? Of course, even if you and Dylan got on your knees and begged, I would never forgive you. People like you. You belong in hell. From his wheelchair, Cole looked up at Don, his gaze like that of a judge looking down on the condemned. His eyes were like a dead man's, chilling and empty, and they struck a chord of fear in Don's heart. Setting aside the fact that this was his son, the man before him was, on paper, nothing. Just another face in the crowd, no money, no power, a few years of work experience, and now with a broken leg in a wheelchair. And yet, this man was completely dominating him. Don was shocked. They were both his sons, and he couldn't help but compare them. In looks, intelligence, and presence, Dylan couldn't hold a candle to Cole. One was raised in luxury with the best education. The other grew up in hardship in a poor, rural town. The gap between them was enormous. So why was Cole superior in every way? Was it really that he was a bad father? Don refused to admit his own failings, and he certainly wouldn't admit that an old woman from the country was a better parent than him. His humiliation boiled over into rage, and he raised his hand to strike Cole. Cole was ready. The moment Don's hand moved, he grabbed the coffee cup and teapot in front of him and hurled them. The waitress, seeing his disability, had placed everything within easy reach. Cole's aim was perfect. The coffee splashed across Don's face. The cup hit him squarely on the forehead, and the heavy teapot slammed into his shoulder. Don hadn't expected Cole to lash out. He had no time to dodge. A sharp pain exploded on his face, and he roared, Cole, you dare hit me? I'm your father. I'm your elder. Cole slowly pushed himself up from his wheelchair. You're exactly who I was aiming for. The commotion quickly drew the attention of the staff. They looked from one man to the other, and it was immediately clear who to side with. A kind waitress rushed to Cole's side. Are you okay? Please sit down. We'll handle the rest. He was the one who had been scalded and hit, yet everyone in the cafe was siding with Cole. Don trembled with fury, a knot of rage churning in his chest. Cole, don't you want to know about your mother? About her past. You said it yourself, that's the past. Besides, why would I want to learn about my mother from your mouth? My grandmother already told me everything I need to know about the kind of person she was. Cole was impervious. He wouldn't be bribed, and he wouldn't be threatened. Before, he had only wanted to put Dylan in prison. Now, he wanted to send Don right along with him to grind their entire family into mince and wrap them up like dumplings. As a crowd began to gather, some even taking out their phones to record, a flash of panic crossed Don's eyes. His job required him to avoid public scandals at all costs. He had no choice but to leave. As he turned to go, he shot back a final threat. Cole, just you wait. Seeing Don about to walk out, a server called after him. Hey, you haven't paid yet. Don stumbled, and though furious, he settled the bill. There's still good people in the world. After Don left, the staff checked on Cole, and only when they were sure he was okay did they leave him be. Cole wheeled himself out of the coffee shop. Cora and Robert Vance were waiting for him at the door. Robert stood before Cole and slowly bowed his head. Cole, I am so sorry. The fault lay with Jenna, but as the proverb says, the father is to blame for the undisciplined child. It was his failure as a parent that had allowed her to become so audacious. Since he was admitting fault, he had to accept the consequences. He wasn't asking for Cole's forgiveness, only that Cole might find some peace. Whatever Cole asked for, he would do it if he could. It was the same act, an apology, but Robert Vance was completely different from Don Sullivan. His sincerity was palpable. He was genuinely remorseful. Jenna's actions hadn't just hurt Cole, they had hurt her own parents. Eleanor was still in the hospital recovering, and Robert himself had been surviving on medication for days, pushing through to manage the crisis. His temples had grayed, and his shoulders were stooped. Cole didn't hate Robert, but it was impossible not to feel some resentment, just as he resented himself. Mr. Vance, please get up. Robert didn't straighten up immediately. He looked at Cole, and only when he saw no disgust on his face did he slowly rise. The simple act of bending over had made him dizzy. Cora, seeing his discomfort, rushed to support him. Robert waved her off, signaling he was fine. Cole, we've wronged you. Whatever you want, just ask. All Robert wanted now was to make it up to Cole. He had known him for a long time and had come to see him as part of the family. A son-in-law, a son. Cole was meticulous, humble, polite, and patient. If it weren't for him, Jenna's legs would never have healed so well. And what had Jenna done? She had toyed with his emotions, run out on their wedding, had her ex-boyfriend injure him, and indirectly caused the death of his grandmother. Every single act shamed him. He couldn't even look Cole in the eye. Robert's own eyes were red with guilt. He felt like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Cole noticed Robert's hands were shaking. He was speechless for a long moment before finally saying, I want to see Jenna. She's locked up right now. If you want to see her, I'll take you. Whatever Cole asked, Robert agreed without a second thought. He helped Cole into the car, and they drove to the Vance estate. Robert and Eleanor had been too lenient with Jenna, which was how she had become so spoiled and arrogant. Cole had assumed locked up meant she was confined to her bedroom. He never expected they had actually put her in the basement. For the past few days, Jenna had been living on bread and water. Her phone had been confiscated. She spent her days either sleeping or staring into space. On the first day, she threw tantrums, shouting threats and refusing to eat. On the second, she broke down, crying and begging to be let out. By the third day, she was dizzy with hunger. Realizing her parents were serious, she fell silent, drinking the water and eating the bread they gave her. Now, Jenna was on the verge of a complete breakdown. When she heard a noise outside, she initially thought it was the housekeeper bringing her food and didn't move from her corner. But then the door opened. She looked toward the light. Was she hallucinating? Why was she seeing Cole? She pinched herself to make sure it was real. Besides Cole, Cora and her father were also there. But her attention was entirely on Cole. She took in his appearance, and when her eyes landed on the cast on his right leg, it was like being stabbed with a needle. Her father hadn't been lying. Cole's leg was really broken. She had broken her leg before. She could tell how severe his injury was. It was near the knee. A small mistake there could lead to a lifelong disability or even amputation. Jenna's lips trembled. She looked up into Cole's eyes, trying to read them. They were heavy, severe, his dark gaze an invisible weight, filled with an extreme, visceral disgust. Cole had never looked at her like that before. As Jenna was looking at him, Cole was looking at her. He didn't know how long she had been locked up, but she was a shadow of her former self, thinner than she had been a week ago. Her once flawless skin was sallow and dull, her hair a tangled mess. She clearly hadn't washed in days. She looked dirty. The heiress was gone, replaced by someone you wouldn't look at twice in a crowd. Under Cole's scrutiny, Jenna shrank, curling into a ball, trying to hide from his gaze, not wanting him to see her in such a pathetic state. Cole, let's break up. They spoke at the same time. Cole had always been one to see things through. He believed in clean beginnings and clean endings. If they were together, they were together. If they were breaking up, it had to be official. Break up first, then get revenge. Keep the hatred pure. Jenna hadn't expected his first words to be about breaking up, though she had seen it coming. But hearing the words themselves, she didn't feel as indifferent as she'd imagined. Instead, a sharp pain like a fishbone lodged in her throat made it hard to breathe. Jenna fought back the dull ache and explained in a hoarse voice, I didn't expect the person Dylan called to actually crash into you. I'm sorry. I didn't know the call you made was a call for help. Cole's gaze didn't waver as he listened to her shift the blame. A corner of his mouth twitched. Dylan wouldn't have had the guts to pay a driver to hit me. In the end, weren't you the one who gave him the courage? We were strangers. He liked you. You strung him along, and you gave him your silent approval to hurt me. The fault lies with you. It was you who played both sides, who couldn't manage your own feelings, and who lacked the basic decency to be faithful. That's what caused all of this. Cole's glacial stare chilled Jenna to the bone. She scrambled for words, her defense a tangled mess. How can you blame everything on me? I swear I didn't know what was going to happen that day. I was wrong, okay? I shouldn't have run out on the wedding. But that's all I did wrong. It was a moral failing, not a crime. Jenna found a sliver of courage in her own specious argument. She was at fault, but it wasn't a capital offense. To put it bluntly, she hadn't been the one to drive the car that hit him. The more she spoke, the colder Cole's face became, a storm of fury gathering in his chest. Of course you had the right to call off the wedding. That was your choice, your freedom. But you could have handled it with a shred of decency, a modicum of respect. You could have told me to my face, or at least sent a text giving me a heads up. Instead, you chose the worst possible way. In my eyes, you are the root of all this. You knew what you were doing was wrong, that it would hurt me, and you did it anyway, without a second thought. And if the crash was an accident, what about my grandmother? She called you right before she died. What did you say to her on that phone call that was so awful it literally killed her? Cole swallowed, his throat dry. Jenna, wasn't my grandmother good to you? What did my grandmother do wrong? Why is she the one who's dead? Tell me. As Cole's roar echoed in the basement, an image of his grandmother flashed in Jenna's mind. The woman who always gave her the best of everything in the house, who comforted her when she was down, who would walk with her to the bathroom in the middle of the night. Before the wedding, she'd given Jenna a thick envelope with $10,000 in cash, a mix of crisp hundreds and smaller bills. To Jenna, $10,000 was a few nice dinners. But for an old woman in a small town, it was a year's worth of scrimping and saving. Jenna's shoulders began to tremble. I don't know. All you can say is you don't know. You think a simple, I don't know, washes away all the sins you've committed? Jenna, you're truly shameless. He suspected that when her father had slapped her, he'd torn the skin from her left cheek and grafted it onto her right. Otherwise, how could she be so two-faced? One side shameless, the other just thick-skinned. Jenna scrambled to her feet and lurched toward Cole. Cole, listen to me. I thought about leaving, but I never wanted to hurt anyone. After I left the hotel, my phone was with Sean the whole time. I never even knew your grandmother called me. I only found out about your accident after I came back. You can ask my dad if you don't believe me. You can go ask Sean. She explained desperately, like a death row inmate making a final appeal. Cole, I was wrong, but I don't deserve to die for this. Please, give me a chance to make it right. I'll make it up to you. I'll compensate you. Anything I can do, I'll do it. We can get married, have another wedding. Even murderers get a chance to argue for a lighter sentence in court. Don't just condemn me like this. Cole laughed, a sound devoid of all humor. It was the most pathetic joke he'd ever heard. Get married again? The person who had a hand in killing his grandmother actually thought she could marry him? How did Jenna even have the nerve to say it? Maybe being locked up had actually driven her insane, made her spew such shameless nonsense. Jenna's words didn't just infuriate Cole. They enraged Cora, who had been standing silently by. Cora glanced at the veins bulging on the back of Cole's hands. She took 2 steps forward, and just as Jenna reached for Cole, Cora slapped her across the face. Weakened and frail from her confinement, Jenna's body crumpled to the floor with the force of the blow. Before she could even register what had happened, Cora was on top of her, one hand clamping around her neck, the other delivering a rapid succession of slaps to her face. The quiet basement echoed with sounds like firecrackers going off. No one had expected Cora to be the one to strike. In their minds, Cora was aloof. She might lose her temper, but she was above physical violence. With a stone-cold expression, Cora easily pinned the struggling Jenna. When she tired of slapping, she switched to her fists. Cora's own hands were turning red, but Jenna's face was a disaster. Already sallow, it was now a mottled canvas of red and purple, like a painter's palette. Finally, Jenna spat out a mouthful of blood. She tried to curse, but Cora's fist met her mouth, silencing her. Humiliation burned through her. She glared at Cora with pure hatred, and when she saw Cora raise her hand again, she squeezed her eyes shut in terror. Throughout the assault, no one intervened. Mr. Vance raised a hand as if to stop it, then let it fall. Compared to him, Cora was far more ruthless. Beating someone was exhausting work. It wasn't long before Cora was slick with sweat, her heart pounding, her breathing ragged. She slowly stood up and kicked Jin aside. You know why the death penalty exists? Because some people are beyond rehabilitation. Just like toxic waste isn't worth recycling. You still want to remarry Cole? Do you think marrying you is something to be proud of? You would only drag him down, lower his quality of life. From beginning to end, you were never good enough for him. You're a useless, overgrown infant. Cora kicked her again, treating her less like a person and more like a free punching bag. Speak up. You were so talkative a minute ago. What's wrong? Cut out your tongue. Jenna spat another mouthful of blood and lifted her swollen eyes to glare at Cora. This is between me and Cole. What right do you have to lay a hand on me? I need a right to hit you? Should I have gotten a license first? Cora planted her foot on Jenna's heaving chest, the toe of her shoe tilting her sister's face up. The gesture was light, but the insult was crushing. She stood over her, looking down from on high. In that moment, Jenna hated her with every fiber of her being. If she could move, if she were stronger than Cora, she would repay this pain 100 times over, peel the skin from Cora's bones, dismember her, subject her to a death by 1,000 cuts. What's with that look? You don't like it. Cora met Jenna's hateful gaze without flinching. You said you want to compensate Cole. In my opinion, real compensation is making you suffer just as much as he has. With that, Cora looked back at Cole. Cole, do you think I'm right? As Jenna watched in horror, Cole nodded. He just stood by, impassive while Cora beat her. In the past, he would have been frantic if she'd so much as complained about a sore leg. The difference between being loved and not being loved was so stark, the chasm between then and now expanding infinitely in her chest. She felt a profound emptiness, as if she had lost something vital. Jenna was in a daze, not even noticing when Cora grabbed her right hand. There was a sickening crack, a sound that reached their ears just before the scream. Arg! Jenna shrieked in agony. Cora! Mister! Vance cried out instinctively, his face pale, clearly horrified by his daughter's actions. Cora ignored him. She released her grip, and Jenna's broken hand fell limply to the floor. An arm for his leg. Seems like a fair trade, don't you think? At least with a broken right hand, Jenna could still walk. Cora turned to her father, a smile on her face. Dad, I should get credit for not breaking her leg directly. If you want to let her off the hook, I might have to go find a baseball bat. She glanced coolly at Jenna's legs. A broken bone in her arm can heal. A leg, that's not so certain. Mister. Vance opened his mouth, but no words came out. He finally looked helplessly at Cole, hoping this had been enough to appease him. Cole wheeled himself over to Jenna. He was seated. She was sprawled on the ground. Whether from pain or fear, Jenna was covered in a cold sweat, her consciousness fading. She forced herself to look at Cole, feeling as though he were a spectator in the audience of her personal tragedy. I used to think choices weren't right or wrong, just things you were willing to live with. That regretting a decision was a shameful thing. But now I truly regret it. Being with you was the worst decision I ever made. Jenna listened to the words tumbling from Cole's mouth, each one a blow that brought her closer to blacking out. This was so far from her script. In her version of the story, Cole was easy to handle. He came from a poor background, and his grandmother had raised him to be kind, gentle, grateful, and empathetic. A little bit of kindness was all it took for him to remember you forever. In the months they were together, she had perfected her technique. Never be too nice, lest he become a clingy leech, but never be too cruel, lest he get fed up and bolt. As if seeing straight through Jenna's false exterior to her manipulative core, Cole edged the wheelchair forward. A wheel rolled onto the fingers of her left hand, pressing down, grinding back and forth. The jolt of pain ripped Jenna from her fantasy. She let out a choked scream, tears, sweat, and saliva streaming down her face. Her right arm was useless, so she writhed her upper body, trying desperately to pull free. But no matter how much she struggled, Cole remained motionless. He was indifferent to her pain. If looks could kill, Jenna would have been run through with 1,000 knives. Jenna, in your script, was I just some weak-willed loser destined for a tragic end? Cole's expression was calm and resolute. Unfortunately for you, I wasn't broken by any of you. I didn't give up, I didn't drown in despair, and I certainly didn't start hating myself. I'm living my life with composure and dignity. Now and in the future, I won't let the damage you caused destroy me. I will love my life, and I will enjoy it. The greatest punishment, the ultimate revenge, was to make yourself better, to live a better life than your enemy, to become blind and deaf to their existence. To kill the body is one thing, but to crush the spirit is everything. His grandmother's death had stolen Cole's joy, leaving him feeling like a homeless child, lost and adrift. It was her last words that had kept him from sinking into the abyss. Cole had spent 2 days examining himself, his past, reviewing and reassessing, destroying and rebuilding. A rebirth from the ashes. He was like a great tree that had weathered a hurricane and still stood tall. Perhaps because she never expected Cole to treat her this way, the intense shock, combined with her physical injuries and weakness, was too much. Jenna's eyes rolled back in her head, and she fainted. Only then did Cole back the wheelchair away. Jenna's left hand was mangled, the clear imprint of the wheel visible on her crushed fingers. No one moved. Not until Cora pushed Cole out of the room did Mr. Vance finally order someone to carry Jenna out and take her to the hospital. Cole didn't stay at the Vance estate. He went to the hospital. Since his leg was injured because of Jenna, the Vance family was naturally taking full responsibility for his recovery. Cora followed behind him. "You should go home," Cole told her. "I've got nurses and doctors here." "No way. I promised your grandmother I'd take good care of you during this time. You can't make me break my promise, can you?" The hospital's VIP suite came with its own toiletries and a change of clothes. Cora felt the material of the provided garments, a cheap cotton poly blend, not comfortable at all. She immediately called her assistant and had her buy several sets of men's clothing. She knew Cole's size perfectly. Before he could refuse, she had made all the arrangements with her usual decisive authority. When the clothes arrived, Cora sorted them and hung them in the closet. After that, she moved skillfully to Cole's side to change his dressing. "You don't have to do this. I don't blame you for what Jenna did. I can separate the two." Cora's hands paused. "You think I'm being nice to you because of Jenna? Because I feel guilty? Isn't that it?" Cole looked at his leg. "You're too good to me." So good it made him uneasy. Only someone driven by guilt would act this way. "You call this good?" Cora smiled. "Compared to you, what I'm doing is nothing." Cole thought she was talking about how he used to take care of Jenna. But that was different. What he did then was part of his job. He was paid a high salary to do it well. Cora saw right through him. "I'm talking about what you did for me. I never did anything for you." "Of course you did. You used to bring me lunch boxes. You always had candy for me. You made me that brown sugar drink. I remember every nice thing you did for me. So now it's my turn to pay you back. You've already done more than enough." Just what she had done for him today, beating Jenna to a pulp, was enough for him to remember for a lifetime. Without Cora, things wouldn't have gone so smoothly. Getting his revenge would have been much harder. "Was I really scary today? Did I frighten you?" Cora suddenly asked, her voice cautious as she watched his expression. "You know, I'm not usually like that," she explained. "I know. You were standing up for me. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. As long as you're not afraid of me." He had to admit, the Cora he saw today was a side of her he'd never seen before. At the time, it hadn't seemed strange, but thinking back on it now, it was certainly violent and brutal. Yet Cole didn't feel scared. In fact, he felt a profound sense of security. When Cora had spoken up for him, had physically unleashed his rage for him, he had been more moved than he could ever say. A warmth had started to spread from his empty heart, seeping into his bones, flowing through his limbs, until even the pain in his leg seemed to fade. In that moment, Cora had become the sun, illuminating his world. "What did Don Sullivan say to you today?" Cora asked. The more she knew, the better she could help Cole get his revenge. "He said he's my father," Cole said with a self-mocking laugh. "Took me my whole life to find out I even had one." He gave Cora a brief summary of his conversation with Don Sullivan in the private room. As he spoke, he wondered if Sean knew about him. Was the car crash aimed at him as a love rival? Or was it aimed at half-brother? Either way, Sean Sullivan had hired someone to hurt him. That was a fact. He wouldn't let him go, nor would he let Don Sullivan off the hook. "That phone call my grandmother made to Jenna before she died. Can you help me look into it? Jenna said she didn't know, and she might be telling the truth. I want to know what my grandmother heard in those few minutes." Cole wasn't demanding. "If you can't find anything, just forget it. I'll do my best to find out." Cora didn't know how to comfort him with words. She decided actions were better. What Cole couldn't do, she would do for him. "I'll also help you investigate the Sullivan family." "Thank you." Cole didn't refuse the shortcut. The Sullivans were wealthy, and Don Sullivan was a government official. Bringing him down wouldn't be easy. But things were different now. Sean hiring a hitman was enough to cause him serious trouble. And now, there was the charge of bigamy. In his spare time, Cole would scroll through Sean's social media, looking at him flaunting his wealth, his perfect family, his smooth, easy life. Looking at 25 years of unchecked success. Fate was truly unfair. The ones who were hurt got no justice, while the greedy and vicious sailed through life without a care. The next day, Mrs. Gable called Cole. She first asked about his health, then got to the point. It was the 9th day after his grandmother's death. Someone had come to the house, an old friend of his grandmother's. She and her family had moved north over a decade ago and had never been back. His grandmother had mentioned this friend before, calling her the only true friend she had left in the world. They had kept in touch for years, first through letters and then by phone. The friend, a Mrs. Thompson, had come back for Cole's wedding, only to find herself attending her old friend's funeral. "This Mrs. Thompson told me a lot about your grandmother," Mrs. Gable said. "She also mentioned your parents." "What did she say?" Cole asked. "She said your father was a real piece of work. That if it wasn't for him causing your mother's death, your grandmother wouldn't have had such a hard life and died so young." It turned out that over 2 decades ago, Don Sullivan had been part of a rural development program as a young man from the city. In Havenwood, he met Cole's mother, sweet-talked her into marrying him, and used the marriage to secure a credential that allowed him to return to the city with better prospects. Back in Denver, he met Wendy through work. They began an affair. Just as Don Sullivan's career was taking off, Cole's mother died in an accident. Cole was 3 years old. That same year, Wendy gave birth to Sean. Soon after, Don Sullivan married her. Having lost his mother, Cole became a superfluous presence in the house. Ignored, abused, so malnourished his head looked too big for his body. If his grandmother hadn't taken him away, he likely would have died there. How did she get him away? She had knelt in the pouring rain, begging Don Sullivan to grant her custody. Don Sullivan and Wendy had also forced her to swear an oath. She was never to set foot in Denver for the rest of her life. She was to die in that rural town. If she broke the promise, her grandson would face a lifetime of hardship, illness, and disaster. His grandmother made that toxic promise, and she kept it. She never once left the town, never came to Denver. She didn't even attend Cole's wedding. Only today did Cole finally understand why his grandmother had been so resistant to leaving Havenwood. Car sickness was just an excuse. That old promise had become an invisible chain, trapping her in that small mountain town. His grandmother had never told him any of this. She wanted him to live a free and happy life. The burden of hatred was too heavy. It wouldn't help a person live better. The resources in the town were poor, the education system was lacking, and there wasn't even a decent paved road. The dirt path turned to slick mud in the rain. It was an hour's walk from his home to the school. He had walked that path for 15 years before he finally got out. Cole couldn't understand how such vile people could exist in the world. Why were they allowed to live so well? Why? To find Don Sullivan and his mother's marriage records, Cole pulled some strings to check the town's archives. In a dusty file, he found Don Sullivan's information. His eyes scanned down to the date of birth and froze. Cole had an excellent memory, especially for numbers. He remembered that Don Sullivan's current official birth date was 3 years younger than the one on this document. Don Sullivan had altered his age to qualify for a civil service position back in the day. In the era of paper records, before everything was digitized, loopholes were easy to exploit. It wasn't unheard of for people's names to be permanently changed simply because a clerk at the DMV misheard them. Lying about his age, bigamy, tax evasion, abuse of power for personal gain, bribery. With so many charges, Don Sullivan wouldn't be getting out for at least 20 years. Cora quickly brought back news of her own. The call log from his grandmother on Jenna's phone had been deleted. She went directly to Jenna and asked her where she was and what she was doing at that specific time. The event was recent, and Jenna remembered it immediately. She and Sean had just gotten off a plane and decided to find a restaurant for dinner. While waiting for their food, she went to the restroom. When she came out, she saw Sean on the phone. Cora contacted the restaurant and requested the security footage. With the specific time and location, it wasn't hard to find. The restaurant's audio recording was surprisingly clear. It had captured every one of Sean's callous words, including a line from Jenna afterward. "How could I ever fall for him? I was just playing with him." For the first time, Jenna found her own voice unbearable. She bit her lip, muttering to herself in a daze, "Sean lied to me. He said it was a telemarketer. I didn't know he was answering my phone. I didn't know it was Cole's grandmother. I really didn't know anything." Cora could hardly believe someone could be so stupid. "You may not have known about the call," she said coldly, "but no one forced you to say those words. No one forced you to run from your wedding. Your actions don't cover up the fact that you are a malicious person." With the restaurant video Cora brought back, combined with information from Sean's phone, bank transfers, and his confession, the chain of evidence was complete. The charge of aggravated assault stuck. Sean Sullivan was sentenced to 5 years in prison. It wasn't enough. The result was far from enough. Cole compiled all the information and posted it online, paying to get it trending. The Brightview Way wedding day crash. The story Don Sullivan had just managed to suppress exploded back into the public eye. More and more people took notice, digging up information on the perpetrator, Sean Sullivan, and his family background. Don Sullivan is a senior policy advisor. How is his family so rich? Sean drives luxury cars, wears designer watches. That watch, if I'm not mistaken, is a limited edition worth $300,000 or $400,000. His wife runs the business, but her family is just ordinary. How do they get so rich in just 10 years? What a corrupt official. A modern-day social climbing scoundrel, abandoning his wife and child, abusing his power. I suspect his first wife was murdered by that bastard and his bitch. The father's no good, and the son is just as bad. So vicious at such a young age. 5 years is letting him off easy. The story of Don Sullivan went viral, escalating until it caught the attention of federal authorities. On Monday, a special investigation task force arrived in Denver to verify the facts. The task force was efficient. That very day, Don Sullivan was brought in for a chat. It's unclear what Don told Wendy, but after he was taken away by the investigators, she came looking for Cole. Cole was downstairs at the hospital, getting some air and sun, when he saw Wendy approaching, purse in hand. He had studied her file. She looked much like her photo. At 45, she was well-maintained, looking closer to 30. Years of doing business with Don Sullivan had given her the air of a wealthy socialite. Because she knew how she'd gotten her position, she was terrified of Don being seduced by another woman. After their marriage, she had meticulously cared for her appearance, dressing impeccably every day. But now, even with makeup, she couldn't hide the exhaustion etched on her face. As she saw Cole, a flicker of conflict, annoyance, hatred, humiliation, and a hint of panic crossed her features. I'm Sean's mother. I know. What can I do for you? Cole wasn't alone. He had a nurse and a bodyguard with him. Wendy wouldn't have gotten near him without his permission. If you have nothing to say, I'm leaving. Cole started to maneuver his wheelchair. Wait, Wendy called out in a fluster. Can't you find it in your heart to let us go? I know you're behind what's trending online. You're the one who reported my husband. Cole looked up at her from his wheelchair. And how would you like me to do that? Wendy thought she saw an opening. For my son, Sean, I hope you'll sign a statement of forgiveness. And for my husband, I want you to verify that his identity information is correct, say a few good words for him online, and get the Vance family to help us out. It won't be for free, of course. Once the company weathers this storm, I'll pay them back. Wendy was truly out of options. Don was guilty of more than one crime. This wouldn't save him, but it might at least reduce his sentence by a few years. Hearing this, Cole laughed. When you came here to beg me, did you have any idea why I'm doing this to you? Wendy's face stiffened. She heard Cole continue. Your son, Sean, nearly had me killed. He also played a part in my grandmother's death. And you and Don Sullivan. You haven't forgotten what you did to my mother all those years ago, have you? With old grudges and new debts combined, how could I possibly let you go? Wendy stared at him, her eyes hard. How can you blame my grandmother's death on Sean? He just answered a phone call and said a few things. It was her age and her own health problems that caused it. As for your mother, that had nothing to do with me. It happened over 20 years ago. She didn't believe Cole could know the truth. Wendy paused, then continued. No matter what, you have your father's blood in your veins. You're one of us. If you stand up and speak for your father and your brother, our family will accept you. The Sullivan fortune will be split between you and Sean. I'll treat you like my own son. I promise I won't favor Sean. You and Don Sullivan truly are a match made in heaven. Both of you equally shameless. Cole's voice wasn't harsh, but the light, casual tone made the insult hit even harder. Wendy's face changed in a flash. She looked ready to explode, but then remembered she was there to ask for a favor and swallowed her anger. Just looking at Wendy's face reminded Cole of all the years of hardship his grandmother had endured, the humiliation she had suffered. How about this, he said. You get on your knees and beg me, and I'll think about it. You want me to kneel to you? You don't want to? Cole glanced at the bodyguard beside him. We'll meet back inside. Wendy took a step forward, her fingers digging into the fabric of her skirt. If I kneel, you'll sign the forgiveness statement? You'll get the Vance family to help us. Cole didn't speak, just watched her with a meaningful gaze. Kneeling to someone so much younger was a profound humiliation for Wendy, but she had no other choice. She took a deep breath and stiffly lowered herself to her knees. Is this good enough? Seeing her reluctance, Cole sneered. Is it your attitude when you're begging for something? What more do you want? Apologize to my mother. Apologize to my grandmother. Admit that you're a shameless mistress. Mistress was the one word Wendy couldn't stand to hear. It was the stain on her life. She never admitted to being Don Sullivan's mistress. In her view, the one who isn't loved is the third wheel. Cole looked as if he was about to leave at any moment. Wendy was cornered. She lowered her head, her eyes red, and whispered, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have seduced Don Sullivan. I shouldn't have been a mistress." Louder. "Did you not eat today?" When he hadn't eaten, she had been running around for days, begging people to help Don and Sean. Anxiety and exhaustion had stolen her appetite. She gritted her teeth. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been a mistress." As the words came out, tears streamed down her face. And Cole's face darkened, his expression terrifyingly serious. When he closed her eyes, her guilt palpable. "I shouldn't have destroyed someone else's family. I shouldn't have destroyed a family and seduced a married man. I have no class, no ability, no morals. I have no principles. It was all my fault. I'm sorry, I was truly wrong." Was she really sorry? No. She just knew her family was finished, that her life of luxury was over. People like her were brazen and shameless. Even if she could go back in time, she would still be scheming how to seduce a man and climb her way to the top. Wendy's face was buried in her chest, her back bent. She clutched her skirt, anxiously awaiting Cole's answer. Cole, holding onto his wheelchair, suddenly laughed. He laughed loudly, laughed until tears streamed down his face. Both Don Sullivan and Winnie were nothing but paper tigers, all surface and no substance, not worth fearing. And yet, people like this had killed his mother, had caused his grandmother to lose her daughter and spend a lifetime trapped in the mountains. Hearing his laughter, Wendy looked up, bewildered. "What are you laughing at?" "I've thought about it. I've decided you all deserve to die." Wendy's eyes widened in fury. "You tricked me?" Cole smiled. "I only said I'd consider it. I never said I'd agree to your terms. You're the one who failed to read the fine print." Wendy was in disbelief. She never imagined that after all that humiliation, this would be the outcome. She shrieked, "Cole, you little bastard! You bastard son!" As she lunged at him, the bodyguard moved, kicking her square in the chest and sending her sprawling. To prevent another attack, he strode over and pinned her to the ground, forcing her to kneel like a misbehaving chicken. Wendy, enraged, was like a lit firecracker, screaming and shouting, radiating a frantic, ugly energy like a wild turkey. Cole moved forward, grabbed a fistful of her hair, and yanked her head back, forcing her to look at him, forcing her to calm down. "I'm a bastard son." When he craned her neck and sneered, "An unacknowledged one is a bastard. You and your mother are both cheap trash. A big whore gave birth to a little." Slap. Before Wendy could finish, Cole slapped her across the face. She froze, utterly stunned. It wasn't that Wendy didn't want to fight back. She didn't have the strength. The bodyguard held her pinned to the ground on her knees. Cole gripped her hair, his face a mask of cold fury. "Go on, keep talking." The moment Wendy opened her mouth, another slap landed. He hit her a dozen more times, only stopping when a small crowd of onlookers began to gather. Wendy collapsed to the ground, blood trickling from her split lip. Still defiant, she glared at Cole with venomous hatred. If looks could kill, he would have been sliced to ribbons. Seemingly resigned to her fate, Wendy dropped all pretense. No more acting. With pure malice, she provoked him. "Let me tell you something, Cole. Your mother's death was her own damn fault. Who told her she was too useless to keep a man? Do you know how she died? She slit her wrists. A real inconvenience, even in death. Not only did she make a mess of the house, but my Don had to spend money to have her cremated. She should have just jumped in a river." When he saw the roiling hatred in Cole's eyes and smiled. "Do you hate me? Wish I were dead? Well, being a mistress is just a moral failing. I didn't break any laws. What can you do to me?" Cole laughed along with her. He took a tissue from a nurse and wiped his hands. "Don't worry. I was able to send your husband and your son to prison. I can send you there, too. And if I can't send you to prison, I'll send you to hell. One way or another, you'll all end up in the same place. I'll make sure your little family of 3 is reunited one day." Wendy stared at him in terror, speechless, likely scared witless. Cole motioned for the bodyguard and nurse to take him back inside. As he left, he tossed one last, casual remark over his shoulder. "You know, if Sean hadn't hired someone to run me over, I never would have got my revenge so easily. When I get the chance, I'll have someone on the inside thank him properly for me." Cole glanced idly at the surrounding crowd, then leaned back in his wheelchair and closed his eyes. The Special Investigation Task Force quickly concluded its work and published the results online. Over the years, Don Sullivan had engaged in numerous illegal activities by abusing his power. It was like pulling up a turnip and getting all the mud with it. Everyone connected to him, including retired colleagues, was investigated. Anyone found guilty of disciplinary or legal violations was punished according to the law, demotions, dismissals. In just 1 month, countless people were taken away, processed, and fired. The sky over Denver had completely changed. As for Don Sullivan, he was imprisoned for multiple crimes, including falsifying identity information, bigamy, tax evasion, embezzlement, and bribery. He was destined to spend his final years in prison. How could these people not understand? Power is granted by the people for the welfare of the people. It is not meant for exploitation, oppression, persecution, or contempt. Those who climb up by trampling on the interests of the people will one day be brought down by the people. Don Sullivan and Sean were sentenced at almost the same time. The former got 22 years, the latter 5. It took the Sullivan family 10 years to build their fortune. It took only 1 month for it all to collapse. The only one who escaped prison was Wendy. The company went bankrupt, drowning in debt. She was hounded by creditors, and it was rumored her face was disfigured during one of the confrontations. Good. If she didn't want her face, she might as well not have it. Cole's leg healed slowly, perhaps because he wasn't resting enough. The cast, which should have come off in about 6 weeks, stayed on for 10. The day it was removed, Mr. and Mrs. Vance and Cora all came to the hospital. Mr. Vance asked the doctor about precautions, whether the bone had set properly, the prognosis, and if there would be any long-term effects. Long-term effects were inevitable. An injury that, deep down to the bone, might heal on the surface, but a fracture line would always remain. He would experience pain in his leg during cold weather, the kind of chronic ache old people get. It could also lead to rheumatism. When the leg hurt, his gait might be affected, causing him to walk on his toes. He also wouldn't be able to do heavy labor, like lifting heavy objects. Strenuous exercise was out of the question. Cole used to love running, easily doing 10 kilometers at a time. Now, that was impossible. The more the couple listened, the guiltier and more remorseful they felt. They were at a loss for words. After a long pause, Mr. Vance finally spoke to Cole. "We bear a great responsibility for your leg. If I could, I would trade my own leg for yours." Mr. Vance had thought it over and finally decided on a compensation plan. "What do you think of this? I'll give you 2% of the Vance Corporation's shares, plus $60 million. Since you can't be my son-in-law, I'll take you as my godson." "Dad!" Cora's sharp cry made him jump. Mr. Vance turned to her. "You don't agree?" "No, the first part is fine, but the second part, I think." "What's wrong with the second part?" "I don't have a son, and Cole is so capable and talented. It's perfect for me to adopt him as my son." Cora frowned, annoyed and anxious. If her dad made Cole his godson, wouldn't that make them brother and sister? She shot her father a resentful glare. Mr. Vance didn't get it, but Mrs. Vance, who had been quiet, seemed to notice something. She gently tugged her husband's sleeve, signaling him to shut up. Mr. Vance was a henpecked husband. He listened to his wife at home and in public. Mrs. Vance turned to Cole, her eyes soft. "Cole, what do you think?" Money and shares. He would be set for life. For a broken leg, it was a fortune most people would gladly get hit by a car for. There was almost nothing in the world money couldn't solve, except bringing the dead back to life. If Cole had a choice, he would have chosen his grandmother without hesitation. "You're giving me too much." He knew he wasn't worth that much. Mrs. Vance's heart softened. She couldn't help but reach out and gently pat Cole's head. "Don't say that. If we're giving it to you, it means you're worth it. Please accept it. If you don't, our consciences will bother us for the rest of our lives." While Mrs. Vance used a soft touch, Mr. Vance was more forceful. "If you don't accept it, I'll send people to block your door every day." There were home invaders, but people forcing you to take their money was a rarity. "So be it." Cole nodded. "Okay." As he agreed, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Mr. Vance immediately called his lawyer to prepare the contracts. After the cast was removed, Cole looked at the long, centipede-like scar on his calf. Steel pins were still inside, holding the shattered bone together. They could only be removed after the bone had fully healed. Cora presented him with a cane, custom-made to his height. His initials were engraved on the inside. She stood beside him, her voice warm and encouraging. "Try it. If it's not right, we can get another one." Cole took the cane. It was lighter than he expected. The quality and feel were top tier. The cane Jenna had used was like this one, rumored to cost a 5-figure sum. As Cole used the cane to slowly stand up, Cora asked, "How does it feel?" "It's a good fit, much more comfortable than the one the hospital had given him." Cora lowered her head and said quietly, "Cole, can you please not let my dad adopt you as his godson?" "Don't worry, I won't." Even if Cora hadn't said anything, Cole would have refused Mr. Vance's offer. Considering everything that happened between him and Jenna, he could never become part of the Vance family. Letting go of his hatred was one thing. Forgiving Jenna was another. He couldn't imagine what he might do if they lived under the same roof. His grandmother's death was a permanent scar on his heart, just like the one on his right leg. It looked healed, but it would ache every time the weather turned damp, a constant, nagging torment. But his grandmother had been right about one thing. Hatred can keep a person alive, but can't help them become a better person. To become that better person, he would have to cut out everyone who had ever hurt him from his life. Thank you for the cane. I really like it. Don't like it too much, Cora joked. I'm waiting for you to recover, so you can throw it away. Throwing away such an expensive cane would be a real waste. Cole smiled. I won't. I'll keep it and use it again when I'm old. As Cole practiced walking with the cane inside the room, Cora stayed right by his side, more focused than the professional nurse. Outside the door, Mr. Vance watched with astonishment. He had never seen Cora so attentive to a man before. Cora was 28. At that age, she should be getting married. Old man Henderson's daughter, for years younger than Cora, already had a child. Every time he saw Henderson post pictures of his grandson on social media, he felt a pang of envy so sharp it kept him up at night. Cora was her own person. Her parents could help her with her career, but when it came to marriage, not even her grandfather rising from the grave could change her mind. Sometimes Mr. Vance would drop hints, talking about children and family with the butler in her presence. It was useless. Hints, direct statements. It all went in one ear and out the other. He was starting to wonder if Cora's preferences lay elsewhere, if she preferred women to men. But he'd never seen her be close with any women either. To this day, Cora's orientation remained a mystery. So, seeing her now, watching Cole with such careful movements, such a gentle gaze, and speaking in such a soft tone, felt like a hallucination, like watching a crow whisper sweet nothings or an iron tree burst into bloom. Was this really his stern, unsmiling daughter who kept all men at a 10-foot pole? Maybe he was seeing things. Mr. Vance rubbed his eyes. He didn't dare think too deeply about it, choosing to believe Cora was simply trying to compensate Cole for Jenna's mistakes. After reassuring himself for a moment, he let out a breath and glanced at his wife. She, too, was peeking into the room. Mr. Vance took her hand and led her aside. Honey, I'm serious about making Cole my godson. It's not just out of guilt. He's capable and responsible. I think he's got real potential, and I want to mentor him. It was rare for Mr. Vance to praise someone so highly, a testament to Cole's exceptional qualities. Mrs. Vance also admired Cole, but remembering Cora's reaction earlier, she said, maybe we shouldn't. Cora doesn't agree. Mr. Vance's brow furrowed. I can understand Jenna not agreeing, but why wouldn't Cora? Mrs. Vance shot him a look. What are you thinking? With what Jenna did, do you really think Cole would join our family and call you his godfather? Are you trying to tear our family apart? What's the big deal? If they can't be lovers, they can be siblings. As her older brother, Cole would have seniority over Jenna. That would be a kind of justice, wouldn't it? Mrs. Vance was speechless, half amused, half exasperated by his logic. So why doesn't Cora agree? Mr. Vance pressed on. You still haven't told me. Have you not noticed how different Cora is around Cole? Mr. Vance nodded. I have. It must be guilt. Mrs. Vance countered. What does she have to be guilty about? She wasn't the one who injured his leg. Because of Jenna, of course, Mr. Vance said, as if it were obvious. Jenna is her sister. When a younger sister does something wrong, it's normal for the older sister to feel guilty on her behalf. If it were that normal, she wouldn't have broken Jenna's arm and knocked out her teeth. She had spelled it out so clearly. If he still didn't get it, he was a fool. Mrs. Vance sighed. Cora has feelings for Cole. Mr. Vance's eyes went wide, his voice jumping an octave. Impossible. Inside the room, Cole and Cora both turned to look at the door. Before Mr. Vance could react, his wife yanked him away. Keep your voice down. Are you sure you're not overthinking this? How could Cora possibly like Cole? He was her brother-in-law. Former brother-in-law, Mrs. Vance corrected. That doesn't matter. If word got out, it would be a huge scandal. I don't approve. Although Mrs. Vance didn't say it, she felt the same way. She couldn't endorse this relationship. From a mother's perspective, she had to think of her daughter. Cole and Jenna almost got married, and the jilting incident had caused a massive public spectacle. If Cora and Cole got together now, what would people say? And then there was the matter of Cole's grandmother's death. Even if they did get together, that would always be a point of contention between them, something that could be dredged up during any argument. She hated to be cynical, but she had to consider the worst-case scenario. After all, dredging up the past was all too common in relationships. Mrs. Vance's brow furrowed, her heart tightening with worry. Her face grew pale. Mr. Vance comforted her. It's probably just you overthinking things. Mrs. Vance forced a smile. I hope so. Cole hadn't been walking long before he broke into a sweat. His body swayed slightly, and Cora, more anxious than he was, rushed forward to steady him, their bodies suddenly very close. Worried the smell of sweat would offend her, Cole awkwardly pulled away. I'm fine. I can manage on my own. Take it slow, don't rush. This is just the first day. A little practice is enough. Cora had the nurse bring the wheelchair over and helped him sit down. Cole held onto the cane. Cora snatched it away. Listen to the doctor. Your leg needs more rest right now. A little movement is all you need. I just want to go home. I'm tired of being in the hospital. Is it uncomfortable here? The VIP suite had the best of everything. It was spacious, fully equipped, more like a hotel room. But a hospital was still a hospital, not a home. No, I just don't like being in hospitals. So where will you stay when you're discharged? At home. Cole had bought a place in Denver in preparation for the wedding, but it hadn't been renovated yet. Now that he and Jenna were through, the house was no longer needed. He planned to sell it. Cora asked, and where is home? Cole gave her an address. It's a rental. The location was a bit remote, far from the office. If Cole went home to rest, she wouldn't be able to see him every day. Your leg isn't even healed yet, and you have trouble getting around. What if you fall at home? You'll be all alone. I'll hire a home care aide. Cole looked at her seriously. Boss, I'd like to resign. I'm planning to pack up and go back to my hometown. It was normal for Cole to want to resign. With 60 or 70 million in the bank, who would want to keep slaving away at a company? Besides, Cole had few material desires. That much money would last him a lifetime. But Cora had never imagined he would move away from Denver. If you leave, will you come back? I have to. Cora had barely had time to breathe a sigh of relief when Cole continued. My leg still needs follow-up appointments, and my lease isn't up until September. So I'm going back home to recover for now, and I'll come back to move out when the lease ends. And after you move, I'll live in my hometown permanently. I won't be coming back to Denver. Cora's mind was filled with a single thought. Cole isn't coming back. A painful knot formed in her chest. She wanted to ask him to stay, but didn't know how. Over the past few days, she had finally acknowledged her feelings. She liked Cole, but she didn't know how to tell him. The woman who was always so decisive had become hesitant and timid. She was afraid that if she spoke up, she and Cole wouldn't even be able to be friends. Too far, you grow apart. Too close, you become a burden. Too little, you fade away. Too much, you become annoying. In the presence of someone you love, the timid become brave, and the brave become cowards. She knew with certainty that her feelings for Cole weren't guilt or habit. She loved him. A crush fades with time, but love for a person grows through companionship. Cora forced herself to remain calm, to act as if it didn't matter that much. Don't get anxious over uncertainties. Patience is a virtue. Haste makes waste. In all things, stability is more important than speed. After a few seconds of silence, Cora forced a smile. How about this? I'll hold your position for you for 3 months. If you still want to resign after 3 months, I'll let you go. As for the hospital stay, I think we should ask the doctor first. What do you think? Ms. Vance, I'm serious about resigning. It's not a spur-of-the-moment decision. Cole explained his reasoning. I'm planning to go back and get the road in my town paved, improve the conditions there. I also want to open a flower shop. Cora was taken aback. Why a flower shop? As a businesswoman, her mind instinctively started calculating profit margins, market analysis, future returns. It didn't seem like a sound venture. Farmers didn't have a lot of money. Most of what they earned went to food and necessities. Who had the disposable income for flowers? They cared more about subsistence than romance. Cole explained, my grandmother loved flowers. She always wanted to open a flower shop, sell flowers along with some other things. If the prices are low, I think people will buy them. So you should give my position to someone else. I'm really not coming back. But Cora was insistent. Let's stick to my plan for now. If you still feel the same way in 3 months, I won't force you to stay. Also, when you're ready to move, let me know. I'll arrange for people to help you. Cole knew Cora's personality. Once she made a decision, she wouldn't easily change it. So he didn't argue further. He was genuinely grateful for her kindness, for her care and companionship over the past weeks. Cora had already helped him more than he could say. Without her, he would probably still be tangled up with the Sullivans. He didn't want to trouble her anymore. When it was time to move, he could just call a moving service. Cora stayed for dinner. The cook had made a bone broth with ginseng, which gave it a slightly medicinal taste. Knowing Cora disliked that kind of soup, Cole pushed the plate of shrimp in front of him toward her. Cora's spirits were low, and her appetite suffered for it. She left not long after they finished eating. That evening at home, her parents were both there. Cora decided to tell them straight. With Cole, she could afford to wait. With her parents, she couldn't delay another moment. In the matter of loving Cole, she knew her parents were the biggest hurdle. She had to get their approval before she could pursue him without reservation. Dad, Mom, I need to tell you something. Her serious expression startled her father. Recalling his wife's words from earlier, he swallowed and asked cautiously, "What do you want to tell us?" Cora saw their uneasy expressions and reconsidered. "Never mind. Let's eat first." Her father muttered, "Why stop now?" It wasn't that she didn't want to say it. She was worried that if she did, they would lose their appetites. The stomach is an emotional organ. A good, satisfying meal can improve one's mood. She needed to tell them when they were in a good mood to increase her chances of success. The chef had prepared a table of delicious, comforting dishes. Without Jenna, it was just the three of them. The meal was eaten in a state of distraction. Mr. Vance barely ate a few bites before asking the housekeeper to clear the table. After her mother finished, Cora also put down her bowl. "Are you two done?" "Yes." "Then I'll get to the point." The more formal Cora was, the more serious the issue. Mr. Vance didn't want to hear it, but to maintain his dignity as a father, he sat down. "Go on." "I'm in love with Cole." Crash. The water glass slipped from Mrs. Vance's hand and shattered on the floor. Even though she had suspected it that day, hearing Cora admit it out loud still made her heart skip a beat. "Are you okay?" Mr. Vance's first instinct was to check on his wife, leading her by the hand to the other side of the sofa. But Mrs. Vance stood frozen, managing to maintain her composure as she met Cora's gaze. "How can you love him?" "Why can't I? I'm not breaking any laws. I'm not violating any moral codes, and we're not related. So why can't I love him?" "He was your brother-in-law," Mr. Vance said sternly. "He was," Cora retorted. "He isn't now." Mr. Vance was speechless. It was exactly what her mother had said. "When did you start loving him?" "A long time ago, before Jenna. I had feelings for him when he was my assistant. I just didn't prioritize relationships back then. So she had let it slip away. It was the biggest regret of her life. For the old Cora, a flutter of the heart was just a feeling, a crush was an emotion, but love was a commitment. Rational people didn't deal in love. Love could destroy reason, make a calm person impulsive. And the result of impulse was like fireworks. A brilliant flash, then nothing but ashes. Thinking back now, if she had dared to act on her feelings then, maybe Cole would never have been hurt, and his grandmother would still be alive. Mrs. Vance took a deep breath, then slowly sat down. "And if we don't approve?" she asked tentatively. "I'm informing you, not asking for your permission," Cora said evenly. "Dad, Mom, you know my personality? No one can stop me from doing what I want to do. If I can't be with Cole, then I will never get married." Mrs. Vance's voice trembled. "Are you threatening us?" Cora shook her head. "I'm trying to have a serious discussion with you. I don't want to make things difficult for you, but I hope you can respect my choice. I've never asked you for anything my entire life. Just this one thing. I'm begging you." With that, she knelt on the floor, her gaze fixed and unwavering. One hurdle at a time, she knew deep down that only with her parents' blessing could she pursue this with everything she had. Cora was not like Jenna. She had always been obedient, sensible, independent, and had her own mind. Perhaps because she grew up with her grandparents, she was more distant with her parents, rarely sitting down with them to share her feelings. She remembered when she got her first period, she bought her own pads, looked up information online, and took care of herself. Her parents didn't even know until the housekeeper saw the used pads in the trash. Middle school and high school are peak rebellion years. While other kids were acting out, she was studying. While other kids were dating, she was studying. While other kids were obsessed with celebrities and novels, she was still studying. All the way to 28, she had never made a mistake. At the company, she was strict with others and even stricter with herself. In the words of her employees, she was a precisely programmed machine that never erred. Why now of all times? Cora's posture told them everything. Even if they said no, she would still pursue Cole. Mrs. Vance frowned, looking at her with a pained expression. "If you've already made up your mind, why are you begging us?" "Cole is going back to his hometown. He's not coming back to Denver." "So?" Cora turned to her father. "Dad, you've been a CEO. You know how busy my position is. Endless meetings, endless contracts to sign. The new product line just launched and needs promotion, user testing. But now I need to pursue Cole. I don't have the time or energy to handle all of this. So please, take over for me." Mr. Vance's mouth fell open, his expression dazed. He hadn't expected the attack to be aimed at him. Ever since Cora took over as CEO, he had been semi-retired, just coasting at the office when he bothered to go in. Life was comfortable. The thought of taking the reins again gave him a massive headache. Mister. Vance tried to resist. What if I don't? Cora, cut him off. Any losses will be on your head. And if Grandpa knew, I imagine he wouldn't be very happy. You have the nerve to mention your grandfather? Mister. Vance snapped. If he were alive, this whole thing would give him a stroke. Her grandfather had prized their family's reputation and had been especially strict with Cora's upbringing. I'll talk to Grandpa about it. He's been dead for years. How are you going to talk to him? Cora stood up. I have my ways. She turned and left, leaving her parents staring at each other. What does she mean by that? Mister. Vance asked. Mrs. Vance shook her head, her expression worried. She was afraid Cora would do something foolish. Mister. Vance took his wife's cold hand. What do you think? Cora rarely falls for anyone. The way she is with Cole is definitely different. For him, she had broken Jenna's arm, abandoned her work, and even knelt before them. They had been too slow to notice how special Cole was to her. I don't have a good feeling about them, Mrs. Vance said. It's not that Cole isn't a good person. I'm just worried they'll be hurt by outside judgment. Mister. Vance understood immediately. Well, we can't stop her from doing what she wants. But think about it. The things we're worried about, I'm sure Cole has thought of them too. He'll probably reject her. So let's just wait and see. Don't always assume the worst. That was true. Just because Cora loved Cole didn't mean he would love her back. When it came to reservations, Cole's would be the greatest. Who would fall for their boss, who was also their former sister-in-law. And with all the wrong Jenna had done, he probably couldn't get past that barrier in his own heart. Mrs. Vance's mood instantly brightened. But then another thought struck her, and she felt a pang of sadness for her daughter. Her Cora, so brilliant and beautiful, was going to pursue a man for the first time, only to be rejected. Mister. Vance continued to console her. Some walls you just have to run into yourself before you learn. But what if she gets her heart broken over this and really never marries? Mrs. Vance asked. Mister. Vance patted her hand. Then what? It's not like she can't support herself. She's rich and capable. She could do whatever she wants. Why does she have to get married? If she wants a child, she can adopt, or go abroad for IVF and have one on her own. We're too old to worry so much. Instead of worrying about Cora, we should be focusing on disciplining Jenna. Mister. Vance was open-minded, thinking with his heart, but analyzing with his head. His words were like a revelation to his wife. Mrs. Vance looked out at the dark night. Where did Cora go? I'm a little worried. Mister. Vance took her hand and stood up. Let's go find her. Mrs. Vance gave him a sidelong glance. Do you even know where she is? Of course I do. She went to the cemetery to see her grandfather. Whenever she's facing something difficult, she goes to him. In their memory, Cora rarely cried. She was too strong. Even when she did, she would hide in her room and cry in secret. When something troubled her, her first instinct wasn't to talk to her parents, but to go to the cemetery and talk to her grandparents. That fact was a failure on their part as parents. They needed to look at themselves for the cause. Cora drove to the cemetery, arriving around 9 at night. She bought chrysanthemums, which her grandfather had loved, and lilies for her grandmother. The two elders were buried side by side. She placed the flowers down and knelt, just as she had as a child when she would bring a difficult test to her grandfather for help. Grandpa, you always told me, if you're going to strive for something, strive for the best. If you're going to take something, take first place. Now, I've fallen for a wonderful person, and I want to pursue him. I've never liked someone this much. If I miss this chance with him, I'll never have another one. I joined the company at 20, taking over a conglomerate. In these past few years, I've doubled the size of the Vance Corporation, achieving more than many people do in a lifetime. I have always listened to you. I've been serious, hardworking, steadfast, ambitious, rational. Now, for once, I want to be willful. Cora gazed at the photograph on the headstone. Though her grandfather was gone, his teachings were a constant reminder to be mindful of her every word and action. It was late July, the hottest part of the year. Even at night, the temperature hovered around 95 degrees. The evening breeze felt like a wave of heat washing over her. The cemetery was not quiet. There were the chirps of frogs and crickets. A few moths, heedless of their own lives, threw themselves against the hot glass of a lamppost. Cora came here often. She had cried here more times than she had at home. She remembered watching a cartoon as a child, and a line from it stuck with her. The only places to cry are in your father's arms or in the bathroom. For Cora, the best place was in front of her grandparents' graves. She would pretend the butterflies on the headstones were them. Imagine the wind as their embrace. The faces in the photographs always seemed to look at her gently, never getting angry no matter what she complained about. As a child, though her grandfather was strict, he would hold her when she cried. He would take her to amusement parks and clumsily try to bake her favorite cake. Her grandmother, 2. Would knit her sweaters, scarves, and gloves before winter arrived. She was nimble-fingered and made cloth dolls. She would secretly tuck red envelopes under Cora's pillow for her to find on New Year's and would make a lucky ravioli with a coin inside, always managing to place it perfectly in Cora's bowl. After her grandmother passed, no one knitted her handmade sweaters anymore. She grew taller, and the clothes became shorter. The clothes she could no longer wear were the tangible form of her longing. 2 years after her grandmother died, her grandfather fell ill and passed away too. They left her many things, but the greatest inheritance was nostalgia. Cora didn't know how long she knelt there. Her legs were completely numb, but she remained motionless. She used to not believe in ghosts or gods, but now she truly hoped her grandparents would appear just to say a few words to her. Cora bowed her head to the tombstones, her forehead touching the ground. She closed her eyes. The wind brushed over the top of her head, like a hand gently stroking her hair. You're just not willful enough. The fact that you can be willful now makes your grandpa happier than you know. Her cheeks suddenly felt cold. Cora lifted her head and wiped her face. The back of her hand came away wet. She hadn't realized she was crying. Once the tears started, they couldn't be stopped, falling one after another. A bright light shone on her, and footsteps crunched on the gravel behind her. Cora turned to see her parents hurrying toward her, both out of breath, as if they'd been running. "Dad, Mom, what are you doing here?" "Mrs." Vance reached her and pulled her into a tight embrace. "We agree. If you love Cole, then go after him. We won't stand in your way." "Mister." Vance joined them, wrapping his arms around his wife and daughter. "You were right. Loving him isn't a crime. Besides, Cole's a good man. We should keep him in the family. If the sky falls, I'll be here to hold it up." For once, mister. Vance wasn't being cynical. Whether she could win him over was up to her. Cora buried her face in their embrace. "Thank you, mister." Vance looked up at the sky. The thought of going back to the office, the endless paperwork, the ceaseless meetings, the never-ending work, gave him a headache and a feeling of deep exhaustion. "Get up now, slowly." Cora stood with her parents' help. As she straightened her legs, a jolt like an electric shock shot through them, a mixture of numbness and pain. If they hadn't been holding her, she would have collapsed. "How long have you been kneeling? Are your legs okay?" "I'm fine." Once Cora had recovered, mister, Vance began to negotiate. "Cora, how long will you be gone? Can you give me a time frame? You can't expect me to work forever. A year or two, he could manage. But 5 or 10 years, that was tantamount to running away and abandoning her career. Cora let go of him. 1 month. Just give me 1 month. A month. Wasn't that a bit short? If he has any feelings for me, I won't even need a month. When it comes to love, you have to be fast, precise, and ruthless. The longer you drag it out, the harder it is to get together. A month was more than enough time. If he rejects me, I'll come straight back to work." Cora moved quickly. When she got home, she spent the night organizing her work to hand over to her father. She asked about Cole's travel plans. He was leaving on August 1st, planning to spend a month in his hometown before returning to Denver to move his things. Cole was now proficient with his cane. Once he got used to it, it wasn't so bad. Even without a caregiver, he could manage his daily life perfectly well. Chores, personal hygiene, none of it was a problem. Still, to be safe, it was better to have someone around. In Denver, he had a professional caregiver. Back in Havenwood, Mrs. Gable would help out. His bags were packed. Cole bought a plane ticket, wanting to get home as quickly as possible. Before he left, he went to visit Sean Sullivan in prison. This wasn't their first meeting since the incident. The last time was in court. The Sean Sullivan of then was very different from the one now. At least then he had been healthy. Now, he was sallow and gaunt, with visible bruises. Life in prison was clearly not treating him well. When Sean saw Cole standing on the other side of the glass, his eyes widened with hatred, and he lunged forward as if to attack, only to be barked at by the guard behind him. Under the guard's glare, he sullenly sat down and picked up the receiver. "Cole, you bastard son, you piece of trash. How dare you show your face here? I'm like this because of you. You just wait. When I get out in 5 years. Sean paused, then mouthed silently, "I'll kill you." "And how are you going to kill me? With your father, who's also in prison? With your mother, who's disfigured and being chased by debt collectors? Or on your own? If you had that kind of power, you wouldn't be in here in the first place." Cole's sharp words struck Sean like a blow. He froze, as if nailed to his seat. "What did you say?" Cole feigned a look of realization. "Oh, my memory. I almost forgot. You're cut off from the world in here. You don't know about your family going bankrupt. In that case, let me be the one to tell you. Congratulations." Cole clapped his hands together. "Your dad was so lonely without you that he decided to join you. The Sullivans truly are a loving family." sharing fortunes and misfortunes, rising and falling together. Very nice. Jailed together, and you'll die together, too. Sean looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. His mouth hung open, but no words came out. Cole continued, your dad is much more impressive than you are. You get 5 years. He gets 22. He's probably not getting out in this lifetime. And do you know how he got caught? Because of you. If you hadn't been flaunting your wealth on social media, I never would have caught on to his little corruption scheme. You really are a dutiful son. To truly kill someone, you must first destroy their spirit. Sean deflated like a puncture balloon. His wide eyes were filled with a dazed confusion. His mouth opened and closed. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The Sullivans had so much money. How could they go bankrupt over something so small? And his dad was a government official. Cole, you're lying. Cole met his eyes. You've been in here for a while now. Have your parents visited you even once? It's not that they don't want to. It's that they can't. Sean, you brought this all on yourself. It was as if a clap of thunder had jolted Sean awake. He believed what Cole was saying, but he couldn't accept it. I want to see Jenna. I want to see Jenna Vance. I want out. Let me out. He went berserk, pounding his fists against the glass partition like a wild dog trapped in a cage, baring his teeth and screaming. A guard grabbed him, and the baton in his hand came down hard on Sean's back. Settle down. Sean grunted in pain, but his eyes, still fixed on Cole, were just as vicious, as if he could tear through the glass to get to him. If she wanted to see you, she would have come already. Cole paused, a thought occurring to him. Sean, did you really crash the wedding because you love Jenna? I don't think so. If you really loved her, why would you have broken up with her when she broke her leg? You just like the feeling of winning, of constantly competing. You see women as trophies, and it was a convenient way to put me down and elevate yourself. The moment you took Jenna from the wedding, you thought you were a real badass, didn't you? But really, it was just a sign of your own low self-esteem. It proves you have very little self-worth, that deep down, you despise yourself. You have to resort to these pathetic games just to feel a sense of existence. You really should see a therapist. Cole's few casual sentences completely dismantled Sean, leaving him exposed and defenseless. Sean felt as if he'd been slapped several times. He broke, shouting, Cole, fuck you. Who the hell are you to talk? I stole your wife. You're the one who should feel worthless, you pathetic cuck. Whatever happens to me, I'm still better than you. Look at your life. What do you have left? No parents, and now your grandmother's dead too. Your mom couldn't beat my mom, and you can't beat me. How does it feel to lose your girlfriend? It's a shame that car didn't kill you. And your grandmother deserved it too. People who don't know their place and try to climb too high are destined for a bad end. Cole, my today is your tomorrow. I'll be waiting. All Sean could do now was spew empty threats to console himself. Cole just smiled, unfazed. If being the other woman is the only thing that gives your mother emotional fulfillment, then by all means. As for my tomorrow, I have to ask, do you even have a tomorrow? In the harsh light, Cole's eyes were as deep and dark as ever. If you looked closely, you could see the glint of murder in their depths. My greatest virtue is my kindness. Don't worry. I'll make sure someone takes good care of you on the inside. When the time was up, Cole put down the receiver, picked up his cane, and turned to leave. Behind him, Sean threw himself against the glass. Cole, I hope you die a horrible death. When I get out, I'll kill you. I swear I'll kill you. His only answer was the guard's baton and a 48-hour stay in solitary confinement. Making threats like that in front of a guard was bound to earn him a serious lesson. The glass was soundproof. Cole heard nothing. Outside, the sun was bright. The sky was a brilliant blue dotted with white clouds. A breeze blew past him. It was a beautiful day. With Sean in prison, why hadn't Jenna gone to visit him? Cole didn't know if she wanted to, but her situation wasn't good. Her right hand had been broken by Cora, and her left fingers had been crushed by Cole. With both hands useless, she was completely dependent on others. After recovering for a while in the hospital, Mr. Vance had taken her home and put her under house arrest. He had reportedly enrolled her in an intensive disciplinary program, hiring a private tutor to teach her morals and ethics. It was practically brainwashing. If she didn't listen, she was beaten. Could such methods change a person's fundamental nature? Unlikely. Mr. Vance's real goal was probably just to keep Jenna occupied, to leave her no time to think about anything else. August 1 SD. Cole packed his bags and returned to Havenwood. Because of his leg, people were kind and helpful throughout his journey. After landing, he took a taxi home. As soon as he entered the town, he saw Daisy. Just like before, she was waiting for him at the entrance to the road. Mrs. Gable knew he was coming back today. She had cleaned his room ahead of time and prepared a full meal. Compared to the noisy city, the countryside was peaceful. The air smelled of fresh grass and damp earth. It was quiet at night, the chirping of summer crickets a form of white noise that helped him sleep. August was the peak of cicada season. They hid in the trees and shrieked with all their might. When Mrs. Gable saw Cole, she rushed out to meet him, her eyes on his cane. "Is your leg still not better?" "Not completely. I need the cane to take some of the weight." Mrs. Gable knew his injury had been severe, but she hadn't realized just how bad. It had been over 2 months, and he still wasn't healed. She took his backpack from him. "Why didn't you have someone come back with you? If you had fallen on the way, it would have been a disaster." "It was okay. A lot of kind people helped me out along the way." Mrs. Gable had made 3 dishes and a soup, with both steamed buns and rice. The buns tasted just like his grandmother's. Cole ate until he was full. After resting for a while under the eaves, he called out to Mrs. Gable, who was busy inside. "Annie, I'm going up the mountain to see my grandma." "Wait a minute. Let me finish sweeping, and I'll go with you. With your leg like that, I don't feel right letting you go up alone." "It's okay, I can manage." Before, it would have been impossible, but the path up the mountain was now paved with concrete. It was smooth and not slippery. He could make his way up slowly. Leaning on his cane, Cole took his time getting up the mountain. He walked behind, while Daisy trotted ahead, carrying a small bundle of incense and paper offerings. Weeds had started to grow on the grave. Cole pulled them out, lit the incense, and burned the paper money. The acrid smoke billowed toward him, making his eyes sting. "Grandma, I brought you good news." He took out the Sullivans' sentencing documents and read them to her, word for word. "The verdict is that Don Sullivan has been sentenced to 22 years in prison for bribery and other crimes. The Sullivan family is finished in Denver. They're bankrupt. I'll send them all down, one by one, to kneel before you and apologize." The woman in the photograph looked at him gently. Cole tossed the papers into the fire, the smoke curling around him like an embrace from his grandmother.